We'll
Okay.
we'll we'll continue that conversation
What
now.
are we, what are
Here,
we asking today, Dave? What's the question today?
where you are and what's the temperature?
Well, heck, it might be warmer in North Dakota today than it is down in Key West.
Probably not.
I don't know. They were having a warm up. They were having a warm up.
Yep.
You
What's
know,
it up?
I
What is it up there?
it's supposed to be in the 20s tonight. It's like 39 is a high, so it's not terrible.
I think the high here is like right now it's 70 something.
Yeah.
But
Are
Brian,
people
you're
coming?
actually in North Dakota.
Yeah. And
You're
what's
in
the
North
So we
temperature?
got
Dakota.
Megan says 35 in Hampton, Virginia. There
Good.
you
Let us
go.
know where you're from and what's the temperature where you are.
Yeah. We'll
I
get
was in
started in a few
Hawaii
minutes.
last week and it was 70 degrees every day rather than single digits in Baltimore. So I'm not even sure why I came home, to be honest with you.
62 in Los Angeles, Max. Awesome.
It was pretty
And
good.
if you change your chat to everyone, everybody can see it. But I'll read it off, or you can read it. Doesn't matter. Woodbridge, what's that? What is that, Richard?
Woodbridge, Reston, maybe? Or I don't know.
Woodbridge something. 45.
45. Okay.
Tim is in Cave Creek, Arizona with 65. 57
Yeah.
in Huntsville, Woodbridge area. Got it. Thanks, Richard.
Hey,
Phoenix
Dave,
is, yeah.
what do you think the temperature is inside the SBA?
Smoking hot.
Okay. You're right, Jerry.
Boiling. Boiling. That's right. So I appreciate you joining us today, Jerry, on the fly. That was awesome for you. And I love the fact that you're here because you have the real life examples, and when you say it, um, come different than me trying to repeat it. So I really appreciate you being here, Jerry.
You're thinking I can say it the same way twice.
Hey man, I'll pull it out of you one way or another. So we have folks asking, will we get a recording of this session? You'll get a recap email with a link to the recording. So wherever that, I have no idea how you can do an anonymous attendee in a questions. I don't get it. But anyway,
It was AI asking you.
it was AI. We don't pay no attention to AI.
Hey, Dave, I saw something on some state work, and I think it was in Maine, and the government estimate was an AI estimate, and it was like 50 million to 150 million, and it was no way it was going to be that in that state. I'm thinking AI did the estimate that they put in a RFP, you know. It was
Wow.
RFI actually. It was an RFI, but anyhow, kind of
Oh,
interesting.
that's wild. All right, so let me start reading these off, and then we'll get started. Okay, Brian. So we have Phoenix is 66 with Bradley. Johnny in Corpus Christi, 77. That's pretty hot. Bonham, Texas. Deontay, 69. Cody, North Carolina, and Hampstead, 47. Utica, New York with Ashley. It's a warm day at 25, Ashley says. That it's been freaking cold, right, Ashley?
Hold on, where is that? Where is that?
That's in Utica, New York.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh my.
Bruce in Alabama is 70, and I have no idea how to say that, Bruce. Silaguga. Silacuga. All right. I can't spell or read. All right. Brent is Sewanee. I can say that in 56. 40 in Chesapeake from Amy, Virginia. Jerry's out there in Greeley, Colorado, in a balmy 49. Ooh. Deontay can't hear me.
Dave, I was talking to somebody today and they told me in Charlotte, North Carolina, and this is probably when I was on vacation, they got 11 inches of snow in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Holy cow, they don't know what to do with that.
I mean, they probably don't even have salt trucks down there, much less.
No.
Shelley's in Ventura, California, 65. Carol says, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to you, Carol. Antonio, 64 in El Paso, Texas. Iowa City, balmy 48. James.
Pretty good.
Francis at 38. Occoquan, Virginia. Did I say that right? It looks like I can say that right. Rob says 54 and sunny in Knoxville, Tennessee. Corey right around the corner in Memphis, Tennessee is 64. And Max, 78 and sunny in South Florida. Ain't that the truth, Max? That's where I am right now. In fact, should I make everybody jealous, Brian?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so here you go. I am at a rental office, and right out there would be where you would see. Can you see it?
I can
Palm
see it.
trees. You can't see palm trees?
Yeah, I
Oh
can.
yeah, there's
Can see
palm
it.
trees. Yep.
Yep,
That's why I want to just want to make sure it made everybody jealous. That's right, Corey. That's what I'm here for. All right, let's. All right, I love it. You guys are hating on me, and that's fine. That's okay. It's all right. You can do that. All right, Brian, let's get cooking. We appreciate you guys. Oh, we got Joe in Washington, Missouri at 50. So we appreciate that, Joe. So real quick, welcome to this program. This is actually Brian's deal. We put it on GovBrief this time because of some issues we had in the last session. So we're trying to make things right, Brian? Make things better.
Yep. Third time we've done it, right, Dave?
Yeah, and Jerry is because every time we do it, there's something new.
Just
And
keeps
it's
rolling.
big.
The bad news keeps coming.
Bad news keeps
Good news or good news.
That's right. Depends on who you are. Which side of the coin you're on, right, Jerry Crenning?
True that. You know,
Yep.
it's got to play the hand you've been dealt.
That's
Yeah.
right. And we have Jerry joining us. I'll introduce Jerry in a minute. Let him introduce himself. Let's get this cooking, Brian.
Yeah, okay. Hey, Dave, you want to talk about the slot? Just FYI, and somebody asked if you're going to get a recording. You will get a recording.
Yep.
You're also going to get the PowerPoint slides we're going through today.
Yep.
And then right when we get to the end of the presentation, I'll go through the spreadsheet that has that I ran it in like mid-December. It's got the 9,641 expiring 8 days with all the FPDS data that you also received. So just FYI, you're going to get that, and Dave's going to be sending to you that after we get through the presentation today,
Yep.
or putting it in the chat box, either or,
Yep.
from there. Yep.
That's what I'm going to wind up putting in the chat box, and then I'll get the link as soon as I have the final link so everybody can download everything.
Okay. So great. So welcome everybody. My name is Brian Hebel. I was a contracting officer for 32 of my 34-year career prior to when I still worked in the government. Wrote a book, How to Market and Sell to the U.S. government, A View from the Inside, because I used to meet with 2 contractors a week, and I would find out what y'all were doing wrong in terms of engaging the government. So I decided to write a book about it. Just released a book about CPARs, really the only book since 2015 about CPAR's guide and best practices. Released it in February, and of course now they changed the whole federal regulation, so I got to go in and modify that, which I'm not really happy about. But I was also president of our local National Contract Management Association chapter, president for treasurer for 2 years, president for 2 years, and helped stand up the whole chapter. By the way, I worked primarily at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services for 28 years, 6 years in DoD for that. Since I've retired, I've created training with fellow colleagues, some of them still inside government to get ethics approval to do it. And outside, I've trained about 5,000 people since I retired. And I love data. I love FPDS data, and do conferences similar to this also, in addition to having clients doing training. I also was even doing training at my former agency, including CPARS training, a simulated technical evaluation panel training exercise that I'm pretty proud of creating, and a FAR crash course. And Dave, myself, and another business partner created CPARS Radar. We've been working on it, and we've just been releasing it in January. Released it just in February, and it's really to help contractors. It's a subscription service to help contractors receive the highest rate CPARS ratings you can. And we're really proud that Caresoft is actually going to be selling our CPARS Radar subscription service in addition to us just beginning to market it. So that's kind of it for me. But I've been out of the government for about 8 years now.
Yep. And Shelly's asking, where can we find your books, Brian?
Oh, you can go on Amazon. The CPARS books on Amazon. Don't buy the How to Market and Sell to the Government. It's 11 years old. I think I still have some references before CM.gov. I forget what it was called. I probably need to go in and update that.
But BizOps, buddy. That was.
I am a CPARS expert, as Dave will tell you. If you really want to learn about CPARS, buy the book on CPARS. It'll really up your IQ on that.
Yep.
Or if you'd like a demo on CPARS Radar, put it in the chat, and me, Dave, and our other business partner will come and give you a demo on how our CPARS Radar system works from that standpoint.
Yep. Only if you're a prime contractor with the direct awards, though, because it doesn't work if you don't have that.
Yep.
All right, real quick, I back in 2007, I got into this world with zero experience, kicking and screaming, and then I started ISI Federal in 2009, and since then we've helped clients, small business, a lot of small business clients, in booking business, as well as created SAM Radar to monitor awards and kind of dice that up. Jerry, you can talk about that if you want, because Jerry's one of the users of Sam Radar. And we also do marketing directly to the government in multiple paths. We use GovBrief to reach project managers and program managers, do introductory campaigns, et cetera, to help you get in front of the right people at the right time. And then we run the Monday roundtable, of which you guys are going to be included, because I'll put those links in the chat as well. And when we get done, you guys can register for that. It's included in this, and we continue the conversation because things change a little bit, don't they, Jerry Krenning? And I'll introduce you, and you can tell everybody who you are.
Changes the deal, that's for sure. Especially just accelerating time. We're getting a lot more change. And boy, to follow Brian, I mean that's big shoes to fill here, buddy. The No, I've been doing federal government sales for 30 years. I worked for a little company called Hewlett Packard, which is now called Hewlett Packard Enterprise. And I've worked with a variety of different agencies over my career. I've spent 20 years at Hewlett Packard. I spent 10 years working with IT VARs. Service disabled, veteran owned, 8A, small, woman owned, all those kinds of things. So very in the Hewlett Packard world, it was more about working with program managers and that, trying to influence the buy. Working with the IT VARs, it's more working the contracting side, understanding the FAR, understanding compliance, all the things that Brian was talking about. And so I've been working with these companies because selling to the federal government isn't like selling to commercial. It's a whole different experience. And people try to take commercial methods and try to sell to the Fed that way. I'm sure you experienced that, Brian. Look at me, I got a nice suit. Hey, how about you buy from me, buddy? So, and you go, hey, I can't even find your name in like the DSPS. And they go, what's a DSPS, Brian?
I
So,
will say, Jerry, though, but if you were an 8A, and we're talking about 8As today, and
yes,
if I had
sir.
an 8A requirement on my forecast and an 8A contractor met with me and I looked at, everything, my division or my group had to do this year, I'd send them over to the program office and, quite often, they would get contracts that way.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So
That's
lots of
kind of gone.
experience doing this. Lived and died many, many, many opportunities in my
Hey, Jerry,
career.
I know we got a lot of people, and what I'm going to ask you, my uncle was a VP at Hewlett Packard, Clark Tankersley, but he retired a long time ago. I don't know if you
Yeah.
recognize him or not.
No,
Yeah.
I always say at one point there were 350,000 people working at Hewlett
And you
Packard.
don't know
So
him? You don't.
Yeah, so what's the
no,
matter with you, Jerry? I thought you knew
no,
everybody.
no, no. And
Okay.
actually I was the
Yep.
18,977th employee hired.
Oh,
So
wow.
Wow.
yeah,
Top of the
Well, let's
list,
get
Jerry.
going.
yeah.
Yeah, let's roll.
So just FYI, the chat box is going to be open today. So, if you have questions as we go through, ask them and, hopefully we can address them. And I'll just tell you, being a contracting officer for 32 of my 34-year career, if I don't know the answer, I'm going to tell you I don't know. Nobody knows everything. If they do, we always say just run. But we should be able to answer them. And I will say, like, working with Dave, hopping on after we do this training, if you have questions in the future, email me or Dave. Like I always say in retirement, I like to help people and do the right thing. Submit and if you got a question, email me, or you just want to have a chat for 15 minutes. If you got a contracting problem, I'm just happy to help. And that's kind of the way, we do things. And working with Dave over the past 6 years, 7 years now, Dave, working
Wow.
together, we're just happy to do that. So what's taking place, we're going to talk about the changes that are going on, and we're going to really go and talk about some of the FPDS data, because you have to hunt with the FPDS data, particularly on contracts that are expiring with 8A. We're going to talk about that. We're going to go through some of that data, and it really, as we talk about what's taking place in the program, really up to even news 3 days ago. We're going to go through all that, and then at the end, we're going to talk to you about how to hunt a little bit better and maybe think outside the box. I always like to think, and we kind of said this in the beginning. if you are an 8A, there's a little bit of a challenge from that standpoint, but there still might be some opportunity from that standpoint. If you're not an 8A, this disruption is, creating opportunity for you to think a little bit differently and think out of the box. And I'm going to go through like what's
Mhm.
changed in the federal acquisition regulation. We do FAR training. I've been doing a revolutionary FAR overhaul training and what's in the companion guide and what's in the practitioner guide. We've been doing that now for a couple months. So we're going to go over today some of the key aspects about what's changing in the FAR to make that's part of really, in my opinion, the dismantling of the 8A program. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to and talk about planning your approach, engaging buyers, and then how to use the report. At the very end, I'll bring up that spreadsheet and show you how to filter through it and not. Does that sound good, Dave? Any questions there?
That sounds great. And David Price and an anonymous attendee have the same issue, and that is end of life of FPDS, which just about threw my whole team into a conniption earlier this week. It's ending. The functionality is going to be on sam.gov. I'm going to do a course on that specifically and the adjustments of that and some of the things that you can find. Be looking for that. We'll make sure we get that to everybody so that you guys can sign up for that if you want to. So there you go. Got those done. And that will be the end of this month. It's actually the 24th. They're sunsetting FPDS on the 24th of February.
Yeah.
And just to add on to that, when Brian and I first started working together, you had Judith Zawatsky, who created and launched sam.gov, who said it was going to be in months, and that was 2019. So high
Yeah.
speed
And,
government
and that
actions right
and
there.
I first met Dave, I wanted to do something crazy, so I did a business development and capture convention in DC, even though I'm in Baltimore. Anyhow, and we had, her, Judith Savatsky, and she was the head of Sam.gov, or I forget
Yeah.
her exact title, and came and gave a talk, and it launched 3 days prior. And Dave
Yeah.
was the feistiest one.
It was a hot mess back then.
Asking questions. It was crazy.
All right, back on track.
Okay. Anyhow, so we all know, you're all here. You see the 8A program's under assault, and it really is. And it just keeps happening every day. Like the bad news keeps coming, and we're going to talk about some of the bad news. But even with that, the FAR 19, the FAR overhaul, and some of those people, I guess, that are, overhaul, have problems with the 8A program are also part of the people that are really doing the FAR overhaul. And there's some major changes that we'll talk about in there. And then, we had three major actions outside of the FAR changes took place in the past few weeks. It probably should have changed that to about 6 or 7 actions at this point in time, Dave. And either one of the things that are going on would put pressure under the 8A program, but together, all of them taken together, it currently means lots of changes, and it could mean the end to the 8A program as we currently know it. And actually, when we talk about some of the FAR changes and how people like me think that are former contracting officers, it is for me as a contracting officer, just like I was talking in the beginning. If somebody came to my office, I had something on the forecast, I'd send them to the program manager and they could potentially award them a contract for less of, $4.5 million. Well, that's kind of out the door too. And we'll talk about that FAR change from that standpoint.
And we have Jerry here, and right when we get into this, Jerry, I don't want you to stick around forever, but I do want you to share what you're seeing as an 8A.
Mhm.
We'll
Sure.
get to that. There's a couple of pieces that I think you'll fit right in with one of Brian's
Mhm.
slides when we talk about all the news that has happened in the last couple of days, a couple of weeks. So go ahead, Brian. Keep it up.
Yeah. So, the FAR 19, some of the big changes, it reinforces, the policy that the government wants to award to small business to the maximum extent practical, right? That doesn't change. But the rule of two now, remember before you would, if a sources sought came out, we're going to talk about sources sought in terms of acquisition strategy because we're seeing some unique things with that when we hit to that slide. But the rule of two doesn't apply now for either IDIQ orders or GSA orders. So awards can be made if it's just, one particular um, small business or one particular woman-owned or hub zone or SDVOSB, they can still set it aside even though they only know there's one if it's one of those. I don't know how often that'll happen, but it's an interesting thing. So, the FAR Companion Guide, notes that the Rule 2 does not apply to multiple awards or to contracts on federal supply schedules. And the deviated text notes that it's the contracting officers to set aside or not set aside orders placed onto a multiple award contract, and it's not the basis of a protest. So in this case, the contracting officer can do pretty much what they want if they want to set something aside on a GSA or an IDIQ contract. Um, and it's mandatory. It is still mandatory, the Rule 2 for contracts, just not for delivery orders, purchase orders, etc. Yep. So let me just make sure I didn't miss any point here. Now, one thing I'm seeing, I've heard from some colleagues that are in DHS, and they tell me, as we go through these slides, some of these contracting officers don't even know these rules. Just remember, like in my agency, former agency, they fired, a third of the contracting staff. Other agencies, more than that, like NIH and CDC got hit big time. They might not even know what some of these changes are that are taking place. So as we're going through these slides, you need to make sure you know where they're located in a FAR overhaul. And it might be your job to educate the contracting officer or the contracting specialist or your program manager about what some of the new rules are if they're going to benefit you. If they're not going to benefit you, don't tell them. I would say from that standpoint,
I do.
just
So
right.
just throwing in on that real quick. Thumbs up if you have ever educated someone like Brian, you're a career contracting officer, right, Brian? And you actually have, it doesn't exist anymore, but you actually had a vendor like us go in and influence you and say, hey, this is in the FAR, and you're like, get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a clause that Dave's talking about. Does anybody know what, and I have my FAR right here. I might as well just throw it away at this point in time. FAR 8.404F. Anybody familiar with FAR 8.404F? And it's for civilian agencies and for GSA schedules. It says it's very clear. If the ordering activity issues an RFQ, the ordering activity shall provide the RFQ to any schedule contractor that requests a copy of it. And in my former agency, nobody really talked about that until this guy, Scott Godfrey, introduced me to it. And now everybody knows it. But that clause is gone. That clause is gone from the RFO, the Revolutionary Far Overhaul. And anyhow, but I'll get to some of that discussion in a little bit, Dave. So
Yep.
anyhow, from that standpoint now, let's just go through here. The SBA may accept sole source orders above the competitive threshold of 5.5 if they do the normal justification for full and open competition. That's FAR 6.103. And that next bullet there, the first thing in yellow, the important change, it's a big one. When an acquisition is below the competitive threshold, that's the 5.5, it used to be 4.5, the contracting officers must first try conducting the acquisition using a competitive 8A order using a SBA approved wide contracts that permit it before proceeding with an 8A sole source. So me as a contracting officer, I can't do 8A sole sources less than
Uh,
5.5 million unless I go on a GSA or an IDIQ first.
So what does that mean, Brian?
That means however many, whatever, when we start going through the slides, the over 6,500 8A sole source contracts probably can't be 8A sole source anymore.
And you're definitely not going to do it unless you absolutely have to,
Nope.
because
Nope.
you got to do the other work first. Why would you do
Yeah.
it both times?
No, no, with that said, a lot of these changes aren't codified yet. You actually have to go to the type in the FAR overhaul. You got to go to and type in FAR Part 19 and see if your agency has adapted these deviations to the FAR before it's officially codified. I'm sure probably most agencies have, but you still might want to just check and make sure. You can just type in FAR overhaul, it'll pop up. And right when you go to FAR 19, it'll show you which agencies have made deviations to FAR Part 19. When you click on it, it'll say 31 agencies, and you click on it, and it'll show you. But that's a huge change. And then the second big change in this FAR 19, it clarifies the requirement is automatically released from the 8A program if the follow-on will be set aside under the Hub Zone, SDVOSB, or Women-Owned program. Release does not have to be formally requested from the SBA in this situation. So, like in the past, when I was still in government, if we had an 8A, we would say once 8A, always 8A. Well, that's out the door too. So I, as a contracting officer, can decide to take something out of the 8A program, and I have to keep it in one of these. So if you're an 8A and you want to argue with them, you got to keep it in the 8A program. They're going to say, I can do what the hell I want to do. I really don't care what you think, at this point. So they can do that. They can take it out. These two changes to me are probably the biggest changes beyond the fodder that we're going to talk about in the news. These are the big changes in the acquisition regulation that are going to affect the contracting officer's acquisition strategies. That's pretty big from my standpoint.
So
Any
Brian, the
any comments?
change question for you real quick. So the change on, they can determine, they can take it out of the 8A program, but they can put it in another lane, right? So they can put it in, if you're woman owned, even if you're 8A and woman owned, they can move it that way. Or if you're 8A and, service disabled veteran owned, so they can move it over to other social economic groups. They can't just go large business, but they can move it like woman owned, small service disabled veteran owned, etc.
Correct.
Zone.
So
Yeah.
so if you're two or three of those categories and you're an 8A, you're kind of good to go.
Yeah.
So real
Yeah.
quick, Therese is saying, to clarify, 8A means exactly what? 8A is the program. It's a business development program that the SBA created to help disadvantaged businesses or disadvantaged business owners gain traction in the federal market. It's a 9-year program, right, Jerry?
Yes.
And the objective is to help set people up that are disadvantaged, to give them a preferential treatment. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I think you said that very good, Dave.
Yep. So that's what the 8A program is. And in the FAR, the 8A still exists, by the way.
It
And
didn't
the
go away.
thresholds. Yep. But the biggest changes that have happened, and if you're new to it, and it's not changing anything for you, but if you have been in that program and you have contracts, the contracting officer has the ability to remove it from the 8A program, which used to take an act of God to get it out, not Congress or anything else. It was like, it's the one place that the SBA had their hands clenched around that they would have let it out of that program.
Yeah.
So
the one
hopefully
thing
a lot of this stuff will start making sense too.
the one thing I
Yeah,
learned
and
about
Teresa, the FAR is the Federal Acquisition Regulations. So those
Yep.
are the rules. And the way that I described it, it's like the NFL rule book. Okay. And so, but there's sections of it, depending on what you do and what job you have, that apply to you. And so that's like in the NFL, you got wide receiver position groups or running back. They understand the rules that affect them. But the coaches have to understand the entire rules book. So that's what the FAR is. It's the rule book.
Yep. That's great. And here's a great question from Richard. If the government changes to WSB, does it always need to be WSB? And the answer is
no.
no.
Yeah. Good question,
Yep.
though. Yep.
That's a great question, Richard.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go here, and you see I have highlighted in red the release, and I'll just go to the bottom bullet first because you were just talking about it. The release requirement for non-8A procurement. Previously under FAR, the agency needed SBA to release an award to take it out of the 8A program. So in like our agency, when I was still there, if we wanted to take something out, we would go to the small business specialist. We'd have a meeting with the SBA. The SBA would always push back, as the small business specialist would. Well, that doesn't have to happen anymore. SBA is not involved in it.
Big
They're
deal.
only involved. Yep. As long as we move it to one of those other programs. So again, we have in there about the 5.5 threshold. They got to conduct a competition first. Just what we kind of went over. Couple other things that were removed from the FAR that were pretty big. Just to kind of go over the SBA's role in carrying out the program, that's been removed. Like they butchered FAR Part 19 for sure. And Dave, I forgot to take that out where we had it noted twice. I don't know how I left that in.
Because it's twice as important.
Yeah. Well, and the SBA is still involved in new contracts, including new IDIQ contracts. So the contracting officer is going to have to talk to the SBA if it's a new contract from that standpoint. Yep. Removing it from the FAR. Yeah. No, well, but let me just go back to that just to make a point. So that, if it's a new contract, they still got to talk to the SBA, right? But if they put it in any of those four programs, SBA is just going to check it off and say, okay. Where the SBA really gets involved and gets heated is if you're not going to put it in a small business program and it's a new contract. So just FYI on that when you're thinking about acquisition strategy. So some other things that were removed, and one by themselves might not sound like a lot, but together it's pretty big. Here, insufficient reasons for not setting aside an acquisition, gone. Differences between the agency and the SBA, gone. The Small Business Administration's role in carrying out the program, gone. All those things
Yeah,
are,
that's huge.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
enormous.
yep. Isn't that crazy? Um, Anyhow, so let's talk about the bad news. Dave, when Dave and I talked and said, let's put this presentation together, there's a lot of issues going on out there, and there certainly are. But the bad news traveled fast. I think one of the things, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the news though, but I think one thing that, of course, we have a new administration and we have the issues that they had with the DEI programs. But one of the things that kind of triggered this off, and just in my opinion, was this where 14 prime contracts under the 8A program worth 550 billion were actually bribing a contracting officer, which I'm appalled of. I can't kind of believe that from the people I know that work in government and contracting role. It was the O'Keefe group kind of put that where they're defrauding SBA's 8A program. I think that really kind of, really was in the news, yep. And we do have somebody clapping their hands. Yeah. That was just really, really bad news from that standpoint. And then they had a lawsuit, and this lawsuit was from two organizations down in Louisiana, the Center for Individual Rights and Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty. They filed a lawsuit on behalf of the plaintiffs, and the plaintiffs they didn't get into, and it's in that, which bullet is it? They didn't get into the very bottom one. The Revere Technologies and the Young Americans Foundation, they alleged that they were excluded from DHS fellowship due to 8A based eligibility rules. So if that lawsuit is won, it would throw out the whole 8A program as what we've read in the past. So that's another hit potential problem with the 8A program. And then, probably the big things that have been in the news all and over again, and they're not going away from what we see, was where the SBA ordered the financial records of 4,300 8A firms seeking 13 different data points per se. And we have some information on the other slide, and it was 1,091. So they had to submit that. Initially, it was January 5th. It got changed to January 19th. They were asking for financial statements, bank statements, general ledgers, payroll registers, contracting and subcontracting agreements, employment records. It was a whole lot of information. And they bumped that date out to January 19th. And about 25%, it was 1,091 of those contractors didn't submit the appropriate
Did
data. And I think the language that we have on that upper slide, they were I guess temporarily suspended from the program, maybe until they comply.
Yep,
Um,
they were like that.
yeah.
They were suspended
And I
within
didn't
three
see a
days.
Yeah, if anybody has a list of who those contractors were, I'd like to see it. I haven't seen that myself, but that's an opportunity. If you see a contractor that was suspended from that standpoint, and you have an opportunity to go after some work, you might want to let your contracting officer know that that company was suspended. What's your acquisition strategy? From
Yep.
that standpoint going forward.
And And when we first did this, Brian, we didn't know what the percentage was going to be, and we knew it wasn't going to be zero, right? But
Right.
I figured maybe 3 or 4% wouldn't respond, but 25% is an astounding number. Um, so that and then additional is we'll talk about this in the next slide, I think,
Yeah. And they
with
do
the
have
with the
here
other.
rampant abuse and fraud. And of course, they had to throw in during the Biden administration, which aggressively prioritized DEI over merit. So anyhow, so that's what they said, and just want accountability for the taxpayers.
Yep.
So then there was another. This senator put out 22 letters to 22 agencies, and the link and the letters are up there. And in each
And they start.
agency that they put out, they noted a contractor with potential fraud that's being investigated. You know, quite a few of them were the ANCs that I saw, and I'm not making any judgment on any of this stuff that I'm saying today. I'll just throw that out there. If you want my personal opinion, give me a call and I'll tell you. But I'm just telling you what the information is saying out there. Um, but anyhow, each of the letters talked about fraud. So they got 22 agencies and 22 examples where they said they're looking at fraud. So this, and when we did this presentation last time, somebody was saying they're blowing smoke and, the senator's trying to get some time, in the press and all that stuff. And that could be, but it's just another thing going on there. Dave, any comment on Joni Ernst's letters? And we have some of those samples of what that
Yeah, that
letter looked like. And here she was sending it to Pete Headset. It was December 8th, and all the
yeah.
letters were pretty much the same. And they noted in there, the contractor that had the problem. And here I have some of the contractors that they have. And the reason I'm saying they were ANCs, you got Chenga in there. I think Echelon is too. You
Yeah.
got Changa, but
There's a
some of
bunch
them
of them.
weren't. Some of them were from that standpoint. So,
And we'll talk about that. There's a bunch of questions about that, and we'll get to those in a minute. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to throw in on this. It's pretty much straight ahead. I think this is one of the best slides for kind of the accumulation of things. And Jerry, I want you to speak to this specifically how it affected you. But we know that disruption has taken place within the 8A program, and you are an 8A contractor, right? So, and on the Monday roundtables, which I'll get the links for everybody so you guys can come to these too. But Jerry's a regular participant in this, and he's been updating us on this specifically towards what is happening with you specifically. So what was one of the first things you did when you heard about the 8A program getting some bad press?
and Jerry is an 8A. Jerry is
Yeah.
an
Yeah, well,
8A.
yeah, the digital plasma company I work for is an 8A, yes. And they're the second 8A I've worked for. So, yeah. The first thing I did, removed all references to 8A in all our materials.
All materials, including
All
your
materials.
signature and your
Yeah,
email and
signature
everything.
blocks, emails, capability statements, websites, all that stuff. Gone.
Yeah, it used to be a calling card, wasn't it? That was
Yeah.
a good calling card for people like me that I could get to you
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you're a contracting officer and the message is loud and clear. We have well, there's a couple things. We don't favor 8A program. We see this as um, tilting the scale in one way or another, and that's something they're trying to get away from. And
Mhm.
then, the other part of it is like, all right, so there's that part of it. And then when you get these fraud type of things pop up, it's like, oh, wow, does that mean I'm going to get scrutinized? I mean, wouldn't you think that way, Brian? Hey,
Yeah.
why would I want to
That,
use this program? And then on top of that, so we were working on a specific opportunity with transportation, and we did it 8A last year. Everything went great. Everybody happy. Like, okay, great. This year we're starting to move into the next phases of the project, and it's like, okay, we're going to go 8A. That the end user 8A, and the contracting office says, nope, we're not going 8A. And so he came back and said, well, what's an alternative? And we said, well, we could do a GSA. We have all this stuff on GSA. We've got our GSA schedule. And they came back and he says, the head of the agency, not the executives, head of agency said, no 8A. until
Wow.
the smoke settle. And that's not quite the words he used, but until things settle down, we really want to avoid using the 8A program.
Yeah.
So then it was like, all right, so what's our alternatives? So our alternative was we found a single source BPA that was being utilized there. We became a sub to that company in order so we could get the award so we could start the work.
Did
And
you
that's
work
how we
that through
had to
the
route it.
Did you work that through the CO or the program manager?
Through the program manager who worked with the contracting officers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I would
Yeah.
have
So
thought so. Yeah.
so this for everybody that's here is a textbook example of how a great relationship, number one, with the customer. They still want to use Jerry. They like Jerry, but there's a roadblock that's laid down. I don't care what roadblock it is. We all run into roadblocks in our life. But in this instance, it's a roadblock that Jerry didn't create. It was created by the changes in the 8A program, and the result of which the contracting officers, which are uniformly 100%, I can say this, broad
I know what you're
brush,
going to say. I know what you're
absolutely
going to say. You're going to use
profiling.
the R word. You're going
I'm
to use
using the
the
R
R
word,
word.
R word,
Yeah.
and it's R risk averse is what they are.
Yeah.
100%. I've never met a contracting officer of you, Jerry, that was pro risk.
Got to be compliant. Brian, I say being a contracting officer is the only one that you could go to jail by doing your job.
Yeah.
I mean, they have
Yeah.
legal consequences. People
Oh,
don't
I know,
realize
I know, I know two
it's
people in my
serious.
former agency had to get their own lawyers
Yeah.
just for
Yeah.
Yeah,
issues.
it's a serious thing,
Yeah, yeah.
and they
And
could do
you're,
it. You could do it accidentally, but I mean, maybe you won't go to jail, but you could do some things that you didn't intend to, or it wasn't on purpose, or whatever, and you can get in
yeah.
trouble.
I had
Literally.
the Defense Investigative Service come to me twice in my 34-year career.
Oh
Walk
yeah.
into my office with guns at one point. But
Oh
anyhow,
yeah.
it's a whole nother
Yeah.
Yikes.
Well,
story.
you have to be compliant, and that's why they're risk adverse.
So for everybody that's here, this example is exactly why one, you want to pay attention to what the perception is of your company with the contracting officer as well as the program manager too. But the program manager liked Jerry so much he was figuring out a way how to buy from Jerry. Number one, be an absolute valuable asset to every single one of your customers. Maintain that communication. And if they say, no, we can't do it this way, then ask them, how else can we do it? And what I love about what happened with you, Jerry, is not only did you get now you have a relationship with a prime that you didn't have a relationship with as well, right?
True.
So
Yeah.
now what can you do?
Well, we can use that vehicle to go sell some more stuff to that agency. We can, and they've got other things that they want to work on. And now we have all our subcontract, agreements in play, and we got all our, all the paperwork out of the way. And so then you call their business developer and say, "Well, what are you guys working on? We'd love to
Yeah.
work with you on this, that, the other thing." And so that conversation occurred. So that's really the upshot. And then the other reason I asked Brian about, if you have an expiring contract as an 8A, if you have another designation, they can move it to a different lane, which is exactly what we did. We just moved it to a different place, which then opened up some additional opportunities too. It wasn't, yeah, it's going to open up. And we had some other things we were working on that we go, oh, hey, by the way, we're now a sub to this contract. And because it's a single source BPA, which you know what that means, Brian, that's like hallelujah, right? Single source BPA. Gotta love those things. The
Yep.
Now we've got other projects we're working on. We can go back to those customers and say, we have a really easy way to get to us to our services to help you. So yeah, so it's a real
In
it could have been looked
in
as a bad
conjunction,
thing, but not so much. So
so what Jerry is saying as well is the contracting officer has a problem. The method that they used to use, right, Brian? You used to know exactly how to implement on an 8A sole source.
Easy
You
peasy.
easy peasy. Now not. So the contracting officer who's risk averse does not like the concept of new risk, even though the FAR says they still can. FAR says you still can. Not only that, it's $5.5 million. You can, but they're not. So in this time, is it interim time? Is it going to come back? Is it going to change? Is it going to be morphed into something new? We don't know. But right now, you can do exactly what Jerry did. If you're an 8A, you need to get that distance. If they have trepidation about your 8A, get rid of it, right? If they have trepidation, get rid of it. If they still love it, use it, but be careful because you may get up food stream and they're not going to approve it. I
Yeah,
love
David, I will say,
everything about it.
and I will say, when we get through some of these slides, we're going to show you some samples of sole source, hub zone, service disabled, or women-owned small businesses that are out there. So there's more sole sources for simple stuff, and we're going to show that to you just to
Yep.
maybe get you think a little bit differently. Because like me as a contracting officer, if somebody came and they're doing IT and they're a women-owned, I'm saying, well, how am I going to get to you as a sole source? But you need to think a little bit creatively on some of these acquisition strategies, and that's what we always think about, how to do it as quickly and efficiently as possible to get the work done. It's all about getting the work done.
And
Really
real
well.
quick, just to build on this for Cynthia, can the KO choose to keep the contract in the 8A program if it's under 5.5 million? The answer is
Got to go compete it now. No, I got to go. I can keep it in the 8A. I can keep it in the 8A, but I have to go out to see if I competed on GSA or an IDIQ before I would do a sole source. So the answer is really no. I mean,
so
the answer
if
is
you're on
the answer
an
is
8A
yes
stars,
the answer is
right?
yes if I jump through some hoops, and I don't want to jump through hoops.
But you can
So
put it to a different lane, right, Brian? You could
yeah,
go like if it's 8A, you move to woman owned, you won't have to
yeah.
compete it, correct?
Right.
Okay,
Well,
gotcha.
no, I'd still have to compete it unless it's a sole source. If it's
Right.
woman, if I take it out of the 8A, I can't do a women-owned sole source unless I, post just, do a justification and
Mhm.
post it.
Now, Hub Zone, you could. Hub Zone or veteran owned, maybe?
No,
Yeah, you
no,
can do it.
no.
I think so, Brian.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I
yeah, I'd
was,
have to have a sole source reason to do it.
Yeah, but
yeah.
that's just a justification.
Well, you got, I'm saying, and we're going to talk about that. That's
Well,
Okay.
not as
I actually
that,
do. I actually have a session on sole source contracts, and you don't even need any socioeconomics because the justification and approval process gives you the ability to do it. So get boned up on that too. Go ahead, Brian. We got to keep moving. I
okay.
love all this. It's great stuff. I think once we get into the meat and potatoes and we get to the spreadsheet, everybody will be able to use it
Yeah.
now.
I'm going to
Yeah.
drop off, Dave. So,
Thank you, Jerry. You're an
Thanks, Jerry.
all-star.
Nice
absolutely.
meeting you.
Yeah, it's good talking to you,
No
Brian.
Monday roundtable because it's federal holiday.
Really? Again? Gosh, you're on
Again.
holiday all the time. Usually every Monday is a holiday. Anyway, you guys have a great day. Thanks
Thanks,
again,
Jerry.
Brian. I'd really like to catch up with you.
Thumbs
Need
up
to
for
update
Jerry.
that book. Talk to you later. Bye
Thanks.
now.
Take care.
Thanks, Jerry.
So, so we see it's, just kind of conclusion on just some of the changes going on. It's a real disruptive state out there. There's huge opportunities, from this standpoint. And like some of just recent things, the Department of War is now doing its own investigation beyond the 8A. And some of those things Pete Hegseth said is related to DEI and fraud, coming out of the administration. SBA clarity on 8A eligibility and what was that one, Dave? What was that article? I don't remember. I'm trying to think on that one. Uh,
Which one?
the 8A eligibility, the January 22nd one. Oh, I know what that was. I know what that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I well, no, I'm thinking of
If
recertification if you
No, it's
sell.
actually clarification on your eligibility to become an 8A, which is a lot of what the 8A program was based on was a race-based program. And that was, by the way, that didn't happen in the Trump administration. Actually started happening in the Biden administration with a lawsuit. Is that it shouldn't be race-based. If they put it as disadvantaged, that's the play. Is that there's some kind of disadvantage action that
Okay.
they could.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then the other thing on January 22nd was they suspended 1,091 firms that didn't submit the information. And then
Crazy.
just coming out, 3 days ago, 154 contractors were totally suspended from the 8A program because it said they're not disadvantaged anymore. I guess,
Yeah.
based on their financial statements. So,
Yep. And
a
some of
lot.
those were making, I don't know, what did you say? The Jerry was, oh shoot, I meant to have Jerry talk on that. He said that one of them was making like $30 million a year. So they would have graduated. They didn't. They should have graduated because the 8A program has thresholds. But once you reach
Yep.
them, you can
Yep.
graduate.
Yep. Good. So just one thing here, when you look at an agency small business goal, just clarify, they have goals for small business, small disadvantaged business, women owned, hub zone, and SDVOSB, but 8A is not a category. That those dollars go into the small and disadvantaged business. So just FYI, just to make sure you all know that from that standpoint. So let's talk about FPDS, and I guess Dave, we're going to be calling it SAM.gov. What are we going to
Mm-hmm.
call it? SAM.gov data, or what's it officially going to be
It's
called in about 2 weeks?
it's um it's contract award data on sam.gov.
Okay,
Mhm.
contract award data. So it's CAD, it's contract award data.
I didn't
Okay.
say that's what it is. I don't know what they're calling
Yeah,
it.
okay. So FPDS, so as a contracting officer, every time you make an award, $0, $10, $1 million, $100 million, contract modification, you got to put information in FPDS for those that don't know that. And so the government, been doing this for a while, really, and it provides transparency on how government contract dollars are spent. It helps Congress, OMB, and whoever else in the public wants to look at the data, which we love the data.
Hmm.
And it supports the trends for, spending trends, small business utilization, and competition patterns. So they use this data in the agencies even to see if they're meeting their small business goals. And it feeds into USA spending, agency dashboards. But we'd like to look at it to see, at least I do, see information on contractors and look at which contractors are having contracts that are expiring in particular. It's not going to have
Hmm.
information in there on agency forecasts. That's going to be totally different information. But probably when we get into like 2027, we're going to see those big changes on the number of 8A awards that have been made. And I suspect it's
You're
going to
already
be,
seeing it.
yeah.
You're seeing it.
Uh, yeah, and by the way, there has been, when we go back to this slide that we just mentioned, they're even talking about changing some of these goals. There's been some fodder in the news about that too. So just FYI on that. So when, when I ran this data back in December, there were 9,641 contracts expiring in fiscal 8A contracts expiring in fiscal year 26. It was about $27 billion potential dollars, much more than we advertised on this. I'm not sure if you put this one, Dave, when we first were advertising this, we are
Yeah.
17 billion, but it's
Yep.
actually 27 billion. And the data is going to include sole source 8As, competed 8As, and it could be, and I'll show you when we get through the presentation. You could sorter it any way you want, really. Your NAICS codes, your PSEs, and one of the important things here when you can start to go through this is finding the buyer contacts. And a lot of the agencies put they all put information in of who the buyers are in FPDS, but sometimes most of the time it's their email addresses. Sometimes they kind of hide that so you can't get to it. They'll put their name, but not their full email address. But we're going to
The
show you.
government's the government's obfuscating data. Say it isn't so, Brian.
Yeah. Well, we're going to show you how to find that. It's on the spreadsheet for every action too. So some of the key facts you might want to use when we do get to the spreadsheet is, I'll just say the awardee name, the agency, you see at the bottom of the second column, the potential period of performance end date, the value of the award, the type of set aside will be in that column, and it's going to be 8A competed or 8A sole source. The NAICS codes, the number of offers received, and of course, if it's sole source, it should be one or blank. And we're going to show you some of that data in a little bit, and then who modified it and proved it. They're the items. They're the primary things in the data that you're going to receive that you probably want to focus on from that standpoint. So look at this. So the number of 8As competed or sole source, there were 30 of the 9,641, 3,361 were competed, about $10 billion worth of work. And then 6,280 were sole source. And that AN is just the abbreviation in FPDS, by the way. And that would represented about 17 billion. And you can see the average dollar amounts of the awards that competed versus the sole source. Yep.
So all of these are expiring.
Yeah. Now there were 1,481 that were less than $250,000, just FYI. And they could have, some of them could have been purchase orders. But
Yep.
depending on depending on what you're doing, that's a good place to hunt, for work too, depending on what your services or products are. Yep. So, actually, when I looked at this slide after doing some of the latest things in the news, and with particularly some of the things that Pete Hegseth's been putting out lately, you can see that, the majority of the dollars, and well, about half the dollars. We're talking $27 billion. So half of it is DoD, right? From that standpoint, but and a little bit less than half of the actions are DoD. So DoD's got like the majority of the dollars and from the actions and the dollars from that standpoint. That was really interesting to me, and that's where I think the 8A program is particularly under a strong attack right now from that standpoint. State Department had big numbers, Homeland Security had big numbers, and HHS, and then we just work right down the line. So depending on what your targeted agency is, you can see right here how many are expiring in fiscal year 2026. And we focused on fiscal year 2026, to see we don't know what's going to happen next year for sure from that standpoint. Just keep going down the line, and you can see it's a number of actions, and then it's by dollar. Yep. Still keeping going right down the line, kind of try to include as many of these just so you can see what your targeted agency are. And you'll be able to sort this right on the spreadsheet real easy. When we get to that, I'll show you how to do that. It'll be a piece of cake from that standpoint. And then just to sort it, next slide, I did it by action count. So, which agencies have the greatest number of actions? And I broke it down a little bit further than just DoD, and you can see Army, Navy, Air Force, DLA, and then DOS Office Acquisition Management. I'm going to assume that's DoD too, or unless that's the Department of State. I'm not sure if anybody knows that one. I probably should have looked to see who that was, but it'll just be on the spreadsheet from that standpoint. NIH 207. By the way, I just heard that NIH is actually consolidating all their contract offices into one office. Of course, they
Mhm.
fired large percentage of the acquisition staff, and now somebody just sent me an email today. They got a job posting on USA Jobs to hire contract specialists. I mean, can't make that
And
up.
they're pulling all the IDIQs over to GSA too.
Yeah, and CIOS before it got canceled. Yeah,
Yep.
yep. So there'll be more going on to GSA
Yep.
from that standpoint. So. Anyhow, but here's the largest number. You could kind of see your agency from that standpoint. This one was actions. This is dollar value. Just and it didn't change that much. Changed a little bit. You can see CDC popped up there from where they were. They weren't even on this number of action, but in terms of dollars, and I'm not sure if some of that. I don't know if some of that might be related. I'm not sure if that's COVID or any immunization shots or whatever, but it'll have the description of the work on the spreadsheet from that standpoint. So then we go to NAICS codes, and when you get the spreadsheet, you could just sort by NAICS code, and then sort again by the agency, and then sort again by the time frames. You could sort it lots of different ways. When we get there, anybody can just tell me how they want it sorted for their particular where they're hunting, and I'll just sort it real quick, and you can get through it. But you can see it's a lot of actions, a lot of them for commercial and institutional building construction. Now, unlike services, I don't know if this building construction will continue because once the building's done, it's kind of done if they're doing some maintenance on it. But it's certainly an opportunity for you to find out who in the agency is the contracting staff to just make sure you get hooked into what they're doing. I was surprised by the number of 541-611s. That's a pretty generic general consulting and the dollar amount on that. And then here we got facility support services, pretty big number too. So, and again, here's actions, just going right down the list. I'm just going to leave it there just for a second for you to see where you might fall. And then put it
We can
in.
we'll do that as well, right, Brian? We'll take a couple of next codes and
Yeah, we can
we
just
can
sort by the next codes. And then here you got your top 12 next codes by dollars. The other one was by actions. Didn't change a whole lot, actually, when you go up here. Um, so engineering services was a pretty big one. And usually what you see is the 541, 511, 512, 513, and 519 pop up. But they're down there. They're a little bit lower than I thought they might have been. But collectively, they're pretty big dollars from that standpoint. Yep. Still, we're going right down the list, depending on where you fall. And then, this was really, this is kind of for me as a contracting guy, this is kind of one of the most interesting slides to me. And this slide and the next slide, Dave, I was looking at it before we hopped on, and I'm not exactly sure how to make it out, and I'll show you. But when I run the data, I can look and see which vehicles they're using. And you would think if it was an 8A, it's going to be a contract, right? It's going to be a
Right.
contract, or it's going to be it's going to be well, it's primarily going to be a contract. It's not going to be an IDIQ or a
No,
delivery order from that standpoint, right? So it's blank, and that means to me, I would have thought, and it's 22 billion of the total, that it's contracts. It's contracts that they're doing, or they just didn't put the data in the field. The data we run is only as good as what the contract specialist puts in, and maybe it's not a field that they have to put the required field to get the the information through FPDS, so they just don't put it in, right? But then when I go down here, look at this next slide. It's got 2,391 contracts and 6,159 delivery orders. Now, I don't know if that counts the simplified actions that maybe they did as purchase orders, but they called them as purchase orders there. But that data doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm not sure why they would have classified that many as delivery orders. Does it make sense to you, Dave, at all?
I'd stop trying to make sense of what they
Yeah,
do.
okay. But anyhow, they didn't fill in the field on just about 90%
Yeah,
of
it's
the
crazy.
actions, and usually I get that field filled in pretty good. So when you get here, you got delivery orders 6,159. I don't even know how to make that out. If you're doing an 8A sole source, and they could be doing it on something like Oasis or 8A stars, right?
Could
That would
be.
be that would be a delivery order, but not that many of them. So I'd have to look at that data a little bit more, and I didn't before this call. But that's a lot higher than I would have thought for delivery orders, from that standpoint of the total. But certainly a lot of contracts from that standpoint. Yep. So number of offers received.
My favorite.
Dave's favorite slide. I probably should have highlighted this in red from that standpoint, because if you add up all these numbers of it, what was the over 9,000 actions, you can see this is only going to get you to maybe 5,000. There's probably another 4,000 in which they did not report the data. And I should have put that number in there, but it's probably right around 4,000. So you got about
That's a lot.
7,500 actions of the total.
I
Let's
think
say
this is
seven.
just, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, this reflects everything, whether you're using 8A or not. And this is what just rocked my world in 2009 when somebody said, have you ever heard of FPDS? And the difference between the data that's submitted on FPDS versus SAM.gov, where you see your opportunities, is 98% don't hit SAM.gov. That's what blew my mind. And everything that I've done since then revolves around that. And this is exactly why it's so important to get to those decision makers, exactly as Brian's going to show you, to get to them. The contracting officer is one side of the coin, programs on the other.
Yeah, now this was just 8 days for that.
Yeah, this is just 8 days, but it
Right.
looks the
Yeah.
same. Even if it's
Yeah, it
not
looks the
8A, it
same.
looks the same.
Right, right, right. Okay. Um, and we did this presentation originally back in December, and you can see
Hmm.
there of that 9,100, there's actions in December and January and February that probably expired. Now, it's a good chance they might have extended some of these. We're seeing a lot of contract extensions just because the staff being fired and everything going on. So even if it's expired, you probably ought to just go back and take a look at it and make a determination of whether this thing was awarded or not. But you can see the actions going forward, and September is always the big number from that standpoint. Yep. Just put in here places of performance. So depending on where you're located, you could sort the spreadsheet to look at, particularly if you're, say, construction and you're doing work in a specific area. I think we had somebody on our previous presentation. Dave was looking, in fact, was looking for doing work just in a particular area. I think it was actually a roofer, as I recall, or asphalt. I think he was doing asphalt work. But you can look at the work in your particular area from that standpoint. Yep. Hawaii's got a lot of actions. Just it's interesting. Yep. So, so the impact on current and future projects, it's changed and it's under a lot of scrutiny. Will the financial statements be a problem? Well, they have been, right? We kind of know that. And as we mentioned there earlier, a contracting officer's ability to award contracts, we're always looking to do that in an effective and efficient manner and do it, as Dave said, in a way that's not risk averse. Well, that's just totally changed, and really contracting officers don't want to be scrutinized. They just want to kind of get the work done as quickly, get the contracts awarded as quickly as possible in the most effective way. So when you're going and talking to them, you want to be able to have a way for them to do it as efficiently and effectively as possible when you're thinking about acquisition strategies. The contracts can be pulled out of these other programs, and contracting officers have to learn the new contract administrative techniques. And I'm going to say under Doge to terminate contracts, which that's probably still going on because contractors have a year actually to submit their if they were T for seed, they have a whole year to submit their termination
T,
proposal
T for
back.
C's, T for C means terminated for convenience.
Yeah. Yep. So they have a whole year for that. Even though, like in USAID, they got rid of everybody, the closed down the whole agency. But the people that had contracts wherever they're sending them to, they got a whole year to submit a settlement proposal to the government on that. So that's probably meaning and I think that went to State Department. Those contracting officers are now are actually probably negotiating settlements. And we did some training on that back in when that was happening about a year ago. So now contracting officers really are going to want to look beyond the 8A program in a lot of cases. Now I'm seeing some work still in the 8A program, and if you are an 8A contractor, you have to figure out you have to figure out real quickly, and we're going to talk about that what your contracting officer's thought is or that agency be above and beyond what Jerry said. So if you do see that your agency is having an event somewhere, an industry day event, like I'm going to one next week at my former agency at the Medicare headquarters. If you get the opportunity, ask your contracting officer or people higher up in the agency, what is their status on awarding contracts to 8As. And you might find out well, no change, or you might find out what Jerry said that the top of the agency said we're not going to award contracts to 8As anymore. So, so again, you saw there was 27 billion in contracts expiring from when we ran that data in December. I just mentioned their workloads increasing. Actually, like the sole source 8As was easy peasy, get it done. Now they're going to have to go out and compete that. So they're in addition to them firing lots of staff, they have to go out and compete the work. And I always say contracting officers like competition, just not too much of it. Like
I
so,
love that. My second favorite thing he says.
yeah. So if they're going to compete it, if you're doing work in DoD, DoD got busted probably been more than 10 years ago. And I believe at this point in time, all the work that DoD is doing, they have to post it on eBuy. Civilian agencies don't have to do that. They can do limited sources on eBuy, so they'll go out to 3 to 6 vendors in a lot of cases and just do the computation that way. By the way, one thing that I've saw, and this was Homeland Security, that somebody noted me that they were doing there. They were posting sources sought notices, and when they post the sources sought notice, they're using that as a phase one down select. So if you see a sources sought notice, you have to respond to it from that standpoint because they're trying to find vendors and they're going to use that sources sought notice to maybe doing limited sources on GSA. When I heard that, and this is somebody that's talking to the contracting officers, and they're saying, yeah, we're using the sources sought notice as our phase one. I don't think they called it that to do a down select. So if you don't respond to the sources sought notice, they're not even going to include you in from that standpoint. And one thing that we don't have on the slides going forward that you're going to see, and our CPARS radar product, and I'm a CPARS expert per se. I hate to say I'm an expert. I hate saying that, but I am. Me and some of my colleagues that are put CPARS radar together. We know probably more than CPARS than almost anybody else I know of, and actually had some influence on some of the legislation that's out there. But after April 1st, 2026, your CPARS, your contract award data is going to be used beyond just source selection data for CPARS. It's going to be used for contracting officers doing marketing research, and it's going to be also used for contract management or program management within the government. So going in 2026 and beyond, that CPARS data, CPARS information that's in the CPARS system, contracting officers can use that to pick the highest performers. So if you really don't have a very good, and I'm seeing this in the future, a couple of years out, if you don't have very good or excellent CPAR ratings, they might not even include you as contractors who would be included in the solicitation release, including on like a GSA or even IDIQ. So they're going to limit competition based on your CPARS ratings. I see in the future is almost using your CPARS could in the future maybe be like a 5-star rating that you're just going to download it. Their AI is going to tell you who the highest performers are. And if you have satisfactories and some cores tell you they're not going to give you any higher than a satisfactory rating, well, you might not be included in a competition in the future. And 50% of contractors' ratings currently are satisfactory or below. So I think contractors, even with the revolutionary FAR overhaul, you need to have really increased review and thought processes on how you go about managing your CPARs. I think that's going to be pretty important coming up it's important now. I mean, it's important now. If you we've seen it on some of these, I think it was Army maps and Oasis. If you have any marginal or CPARs below a certain rating score, they're just kicking you out, but don't even apply. So it's going to be used a little bit more just to thin out the herd, is the way I see it from that standpoint. So the acquisition strategies are changing. They may be using new strategies in the future that we haven't seen, kind of like what I just mentioned. And they may not be familiar with the FAR changes. I'm hearing that also. So there's this information on the revolutionary FAR overhaul where contracting officers can put in their new and innovative approaches for really doing acquisition strategies. And even in FAR Part 16, which identifies the contract types, it's even telling them that if you want to use a contract type other than fixed price, cost reimbursement, all the things in FAR Part 16, go ahead and try it. I can't imagine what a new contract type would be, but they are encouraging contracting officers to think a little bit differently from that standpoint. So some future awards and projects may be frozen, even until the dust settles. And I think contracts may be extended. And the FAR changes really have really profound ways on how you all can hunt for new work in the future. I think big changes taking place and how that's impacting the agencies. We're getting down to your buying command where you might be looking at. It's all kind of up in the air at this point in time. So I think it's an opportunity for you to think outside the box a little bit in terms of how you may have been hunting in the past. So impact on current projects and future contracts. You need to know how to apply these new rules and the turmoil going out there to your advantage. I always say, this turmoil always creates opportunities for some people. So contractors may be looking to partner with you now that contractors can go to other categories. And we had this in there, that we had this in the slide one. We've done it the past two times. And here Jerry's a really good example of how that can happen. There could be potential impact on Oasis and 8A stars, and I'm not sure what that impact is now. If anybody has what that impact, if they've seen that on contractors using 8A stars, let us know. A GSA push, civilian agencies may use, GSA sources more often. I think we're going to see that and not post things on eBuy. So how can you make this work for you? I think you can. And you need to push government program managers and cores into your direction. The government cores and the program managers, they're not, if the contracting officers aren't keeping up with the FAR, don't expect the program managers and cores to. One thing I will like to say that you need to think about, and I'm seeing a little bit more of it, is doing logical follow-ons. Just let's exclude the talk from the 8A program. But if you have a GSA award or an IDIQ award, contracting officers can do a one-time logical follow-on in the purposes of efficiency and economy. And they can justify that. Has anybody done logical follow-ons in the past year? Give a thumbs up. We'd like to see it. But if you go into FAR Part 8, well, now it's taken out of FAR Part 8, actually. The FAR Part 8 GSA schedules has been gutted and it's been put in the GSA manual. We're actually doing training on the GSA manual in 2 weeks because it's not in the FAR anymore. But in the purposes of efficiency and economy, contracting officers can do one logical follow-on. You need to know where that is in the FAR, and you need to educate your program manager or your core if your contract is expiring this year or next year and they're up to their elbows and trying to get the work done. If anybody needs that site in FAR Part 16, I'll put it up I can't put it up in the chat, Dave, but if anybody knows where that site is and it's buried in FAR Part 16 under exceptions to fair opportunity, you got to have that one in your toolbox for sure, and educate your program managers. I've seen it work. I've helped contractors make that work where they don't have to do a competition from that standpoint.
You said FAR Part 18?
Yeah, it's a FAR. Once you start talking, Dave, I'll pull that out and tell them where it is. FAR Part 16. FAR Part 8, it used to be in there. It's gone because they totally gutted FAR Part 8 in the FAR overhaul. But I'll tell you where it was at FAR Part 8, but it's not there anymore. So you may want a team with a company being strictly audited. Do you want a team with a company being strictly audited by the government? I don't know. They're under a microscope and COs are risk adverse. I don't know. That's why I was even asking in the beginning, who are those 1,000 contractors that didn't submit the data, right?
Yep.
I want to know who those are if I was a contractor, because if I see one on there and then I go on to the spreadsheet, I'm going to send you and see that their contracts are expiring. They're not going to be getting to them as an 8A,
And especially the 130 whatever you had.
154.
154 that you had, because those have existing work.
Yep. Yeah, I'd write my CEO and say, hey, have you seen this list? Your contractor's on the list. We can help. So
we're gonna do some more work on that, and we'll see if we can update a list for those.
Yep. So planning your approach. Sole sources less than 5 million are pretty much no longer available. Now they can move. FAR Part 12, FAR Part 13 is kind of X'd out, and FAR Part 13 is for non-commercial buys, and they moved all commercial buys to FAR Part 12. It wasn't used a whole lot. I'll give just one other tip. If you got some innovative products, per se, go to sam.gov and type in commercial solutions opening CSO, and you'll see lots of DoD agencies are now, I think even more than other transaction authority, they're using this pilot commercial solutions opportunity to try to get innovative products to the warfighter quickly. Just type in CSO or BAA, broad agency announcements, and other agencies, and you'll be shocked how many items are popping up. And I'm not sure, Dave, if your product can help with that, if they're looking for those CSOs particularly, but that's something really I think contractors need to think about.
Yep.
Yep. Yep. So could a contracting officer move a solicitation to GSA and do limited sources? If I was still in the government, that's what I would be doing. Could a sole source be done on a GSA or IDIQ regarding Rule 2? We're going to talk about that a little bit. And as an 8A, are you an SDOSB, a women-owned small business, a hub zone, or SDBOSB? I got too many S's there. But that would be things I'd be looking for. So playing your approach, understand the Rule 2 in your targeted agency, and there might be some ways you can wiggle in now that ADAs are $5 million less. Is that a duplicate slide to a? I don't. Well, I
It's
got some of
close
the
to
same
duplicate.
thing.
It's
Yeah.
pretty much the same thing. You can go to the next
Yeah.
one.
Yep. Yep. So let me just do okay. So engaging buyers. We're going to talk about do's and don'ts, qualifications,
You
pointing the
always
train.
this is for folks that were being trained by PTAX and other people to pitch being 8A or woman owned or hub zone first. That was always wrong. You always want to address it as your qualifications first. So at the very least, this change in the 8A piece makes you do it right from the beginning.
And I will
Thanks for the
say,
thumbs up.
when I wrote my book back in 2015, don't buy it. But when I wrote one of the reasons I wrote it is right this point when I would have contractors come in all the time, you got to align with the mission objectives. And I came up with four, actually came up with seven things in the book, but the basic four, and I could do this with my eyes closed: save money, solve a problem, new technology, or and I'm forgetting industry trends. But that's the reason you would want to meet with somebody, right? You want to help them think about how they can do any of those four things. Particularly even with AI out there with industry trends, they probably, I don't want to say they'd love to talk to you, but if they had time and you had something interesting, they would kind of want to hear that. So,
And and real quick, just focusing in on that, save money, solve problems. That's on the program side of the house. However, now you have contracting officers that have a problem because they used to use 8As and now they're not. So now you can actually use your socioeconomic category that's not 8A to help them solve a problem, a temporary problem. It's right now. Does that make sense?
yeah. And I do like the bottom point, sympathy for the contracting officer.
We
Remember,
caught some heat for that
yeah,
last time.
yeah, well, remember a lot of their colleagues have been fired, so they got more work to do than they know. In my agency, and I do expiring contract presentations for my former agency and some other ones. But when for every one new contract they do 10 contract modifications. So we all think on the outside all they're working on is new stuff. But they got to keep the trains running, right? So they're doing
Mm-hmm.
mods, options, supplemental agreements, closeouts, they're doing all these other actions that we tend not to think about. So once the other people got fired, they're picking all that stuff up. Just like I said, State Department, now they got all the USA AID work and they're working on all these terminations. So it's a poop storm inside these agencies from that standpoint. So just don't think, if they don't get back to you in a day, don't give them a hard time. Why didn't you call me back or whatever? Have a little bit of sympathy when you do talk to them, and even the program managers for that standpoint. But some of these other points, they want to keep their jobs. Being yeah,
That's a big deal. We never
yeah,
seen that before. For anybody that's been in this and calling on these people, that's never been one of the reasons why they would we be motivated. And now this past year, there's a ton of people, Brian. You know a bunch of
yeah.
them.
I know a lot of people that lost their jobs. I know
Yeah.
a lot of people, and a lot of people worried about losing their job.
Yep.
from that standpoint, and it's tough to trust me, seeing it, being on the industry side, I see how hard it is too. So, so we're talking about how to get new work, as opposed to the challenges in industry. And we all know there's challenges on the industry side too with everything going on. So
Yep.
anyhow, so, I put some of these posts in here just to get you to think a little bit. And I went in to look at, where are there some sole source awards? And there was a big number. I forget how many there were when I ran some data in the past year. I don't know if there were 1,300 or maybe it was a big number. But I put some of these sole source awards in here that you could see. And here, these are hub zones. And look at like that second one, 6,000 pallet trucks, 6,000 pound trucks for this agency, or repairing HVAC for a hub zone. It's a sole source. Or here are these reinforced polyfibers, polymers, I'm sorry, material supply, or national background investigations. These aren't things that, or even the bottom one, security video surveillance system. These are not things that I would think are sole source. And when I looked at this, I said, "Oh crap!" So, like, if you want to try to figure out how can I convince an agency that my hub zone is sole source, go in and look at these. And when you click on these, it'll have the justifications the agency used. But I was surprised. And here's some women owned, right? Here's some. Here, emergency repairs after a wastewater leak. Well, that sounds like a real emergency to me. I will say that. you know, but here,
That you can
multimedia,
see why they would sole source fast.
yeah, multimedia advertising, or the other one, forklift preventive maintenance and repairs. They don't sound like sole source to me, but the contracting officers justified them as such.
Yep. And
And
we help them do it. We help them justify it.
right. You do the justification,
Yep.
which you can look under FAR Part 6. FAR Part 6, it has in there what you need to fill out. But here,
Mhm.
SDVOSB awards, and most of them were here from that. But here, elevator inspection, here, home oxygen, short-term Tampa home oxygen.
Yep.
Here,
You can
caustic soda. Here, court reporting services, or a UHF radio procurement. I don't know. None of them sound like I would have never thought as sole source, but you can see on the far right, sole source indicated. So you
yep.
go in if you want to think about, your sole source. But does anybody think? Well, let me ask you this: who thinks these would have been sole source? Who thinks these should not have been sole source? I should say. Give a thumbs up if you didn't think these would be sole source. Can we see some thumbs up? Thank you. We got one. We got one, too. Yeah.
So be asking yourself, and I just put this in the chat. It's semi self-serving, but I actually do. I'm talking about this next week, Brian, specifically whether or not you're small business or not. There's J&As happening every day, just like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I was shocked. I was shocked when I for this presentation when I started pulling this data, and the numbers were pretty staggering. So, and as Dave said, so you would just want to educate the contracting officer how like, hey, look, here's one that was done for our product, or here's one they did. Like being a contracting officer and being the agency. If somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I got a home oxygen here, and we can do a sole source for this," I would say, "You're crazy. I can't. How do I do that?" Well, here's one. They did it. So anyhow, if you could find something similar, or just kind of think about it a little bit differently, and hopefully showing you some of these right from sam.gov might help you think about it a little bit. So, Dave, I think I've done enough talking. Right now.
Hang on one.
So Dave's going to talk about, thinking about how to win and what you need to do different. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to pull up the spreadsheet.
Yeah, you go ahead and pull up the spreadsheet because I'm just going to rip through this a little bit. So I'm going to hand these out too. This is called the Winnable Opportunity Matrix. I created this back in 2009 to help clients kind of get to where they want to go, which is in the green. I'm not going to go too deep into this other than to say the main thing that you want to be doing is watching, and you're going to use the data that Brian gives you. We're going to call that monitoring activity. And then you're going to use that data to engage your contracting officer so that you can build a relationship, so you can influence the acquisition process in your favor, totally legal, not fair, but totally legal, right, Brian? Because if you're doing something, you want to do it to your benefit. And that's exactly what Brian says. If they were running it this way, you want to change it and putting it into your what is beneficial to you so that you can influence the acquisition strategy as well as get your dirty, grubby little fingerprints all over the scope of work if you can. And then you minimize the competition. By definition, you will minimize the competition and increase your win capability. Everybody getting that as a concept. I'm not going to explain this whole thing. We'll talk about it on the Monday roundtables more if you want to come in. You get the idea that you want to know about it ahead of time and you want to get your fingers on the acquisition strategy and the scope of work. Everybody got that?
Yeah, and it's really funny, when I talk about save money, solve a problem, new technology, industry trends. I was sitting in a Panera Bread with somebody, a BD guy, and I asked him, this guy is Ted Glarin. This is probably 15 years ago. And I said, Ted, what do you think the most important thing is about doing business with government? He told me those four, and I wrote them down, put them in the book. But, it still holds true. If you want to try to get into your agency, and get into program managers, you got to have something to offer. And I know people talk about the capability statements and they're important, but I would get lots of capability statements and they would go in my pile. You got to help them get the work done. I would do some training with the CIO on how to get a meeting with the Fed, and we were doing that. Did that. He since retired. He was a CIO. He had to schedule his time to go to the bathroom during the day. That's how busy he had to schedule his time on his calendar to go to the bathroom. And then two other people when we stood up our NCMA chapter and we had some senior executives that had retired and they came and spoke and they said when they would have a meeting and the contractor would come in and sit down if their assistant would come in 15 minutes into the conversation, and if that person wasn't providing them value in terms of helping them save money, solve a problem, or anything new technology, industry trends, what they would be interested in, the assistant would come in and say, "I have another meeting. You got an important, call with the administrator," and if she liked what was going on, she would say, "Well, you're going to have to just tell them to hold. I'll be with them, and after I'm done this call. Otherwise, she'd tell them she's got to go." So she would cut the meeting off. That's how valuable the time was. So.
And I think that I've been involved in those meetings too, where I've had them come in and then instead of being 15 minutes, winds up being an hour. Go ahead and hit the next thing.
Do you ever have a 15-minute one too?
Absolutely. Especially, and sometimes I was in there just as kind of to be their fly on the wall, and they just weren't resonating with the contractor.
Yeah, so I mean, it could work right. It could work.
Yeah, hit the next slide, bro.
Yeah,
Let's get through these. I'm going to get through these real quick, and you can get to the data, and that way we'll be rocking and rolling. So, real quick, again, getting into the green, knowing ahead of time, your contract size and your sweet spot. Did you help them set the budget? Does anybody know that you could actually help them set the budget? That would be a rough order of magnitude, right, Brian?
Yeah.
Right. And then making sure it's funded, because if it's not funded, it isn't real. And then getting your fingerprints on the scope of work, directing the acquisition strategy. That's what that column is, and reducing the number of competitors. Okay, hit the next one.
Yeah, I will say one thing, Dave, on that.
Yep.
From a FOIA standpoint, I know you all probably go to FOIA and ask, can we see copy? You go through FOIA and ask. If you ask your contracting officer just for a copy of the statement of work, the prior statement of work, they might send it to you just on the fly because it's nothing proprietary. So if you just want to understand how the work was structured before, send an email to your contracting officer. Just ask them if they'll give you a copy of the scope of work, past scope of work.
Yep.
Nothing proprietary about that. They're not going to get in trouble. And if you ask for the contract, maybe there might be some pricing things in there, and they might be a little bit soft on that. But if you just ask for a scope of work, that might help you.
And that gets to the next slide, which is the people that are associated with it. Go to the next one.
Sorry. Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
So on the next one, we start talking about the decision makers. So you have your contracting officer, CO, and KO, depending on the agency. Hit the next one. We want to drive them into the green. If you don't know who they are, and there's a lot of folks that you're going to see on the report that Brian's going to give you, don't know who they are, your job to introduce yourself so that they know you. And if you take a look on the winnable opportunity matrix, I'll drop it in for you, but you'll see what it means for each one of these numbers. It's a relationship scale of whether they know you, whether they don't know you. You can go to the next one. So this is the relationship scale. Not everybody's going to need to be a champion, and you won't find a lot of champions. That's them taking your flag up the hill. But you'll find there's a lot of people that are willing to coach you, like Brian was when he was a contracting officer. Or at the very least, hey, I like you. You didn't spit when you talk. You didn't step on my shoes in the elevator. At least you're a decent person. So that kind of gives you the idea for relationship goals, what you need to be able to get in and influence the scope of work as well as the acquisition strategy. You can hit the next one.
It's probably harder than it's ever been, from that standpoint.
So you can see all of these kind of drive you into knowing early, influencing it. You can get a coach, get them on your side, get them to use your set aside, and driving them into the green. That's what this whole screen's about. Go to the next one. So this is where we were talking about before. We're going to monitor activity. Go ahead and hit the button. Make sure there's nothing else happening there. So we have expiring 8A data. We're going to put you in templates. You're going to press them to utilize a different vehicle or a different set aside, and also get your input in on the scope of work so that they can limit those resources and get you to the place where you're winning. Go ahead to the next one. So in this instance, here we have you're not the incumbent, and you're a woman-owned business, service-to-service business, or hub zone, because we know that they can move this. The contracting officer can move it from one category to another, right, Brian?
Yep.
And this also impacts everybody else. If you're a small business, when Jerry was talking, listen to what Jerry said. He's like, hey, get it done the way they want to do it. Whatever it is, no matter what that process is, talking to the individuals, both on the program side and the comfortability level within the contracting officer's mind. That's individual contracting officers. That's why every single one of your projects that you want to bid on or that you want to work on has to be done on the personal level. That's what relationships are. Relationships aren't built with agencies. They're built between two people. So that's your job. And if you're going to disrupt the incumbent, right now, the incumbent is disrupted by their very nature as an 8A firm. They're disrupted. Their whole world is disrupted. So they need to know you exist, that you can do the work, you want the work, and you're giving them an alternative path for them to get to you. Same exact thing that Jerry did is what you want to be doing. Go ahead and hit the next one. Each one of these, contracting officer, including the PM, the core, and those are the people that you need to be talking to when it comes to individual contracts. Go to the next one. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the data that Brian's going to show you, and it's an expiring contract. It's in the Excel document, and you're going to reach out directly to each one of these. There could be as many as 3 different individuals that are touching that procurement. So you have your prepared user, your modified user, and approved by user. One of those people is going to be your contracting officer. The other one could be other contracting officers, or they could be contracting specialists, right, Brian?
Yep.
Yep. The biggest thing is you want to get the meeting. Get in front of them if you can, face to face. They're doing it now, by the way. They're meeting with people again after COVID. We kicked all that stuff to the curb. You can always do Zoom and Teams like we do. Do a lot of those. We're doing it right now, for God's sakes. Here's where there's a couple of templates that came originally in the new year. Smith these. You gotta today. You could use it today to reach out to one of these and say, hey, we got the extended weekend with President's Day. Happy President's Day. I want to make sure you know we exist. I want to talk with you about the PID. The PID is your contract ID. You're going to find that in the documentation. That's what the contracting officer calls it. Start using terms that they use. You have two different ones. There's an IDV PID and there's a PID, PIID. Those are the two that you can go and say, hey, I want to chat with you about this PID. That's going to immediately tie them to something that they're touching. They know.
I would,
Dave,
Dave, I would
go
just
ahead.
say contract or order on that. If it's order,
Okay,
I'd say order or I'd say contract.
that's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah.
You can do that too. So Brian likes to use contract or order instead of PID. Do what he wants. Go to the next one.
You're funny, Dave.
Hey man, I like selling people the way they want to be sold. All right. So if you're a small business, same fundamental approach. And then at the bottom is where you're going to see the differences. Ask the contracting officer to compete this in small business. Don't put it out for everybody and their mother. Compete it with small businesses. And oftentimes, if you have a particular vehicle like a GSA contract, compete it within small businesses within that GSA contract SIN. You can use that as well. And provide justification and approval language because they can still sole source to you, even not dealing with any socioeconomic category. And I'll talk about this next week with the other session, but you have two different types of justifications and approval. One is using the socioeconomic category by statute that's given by Congress. The other is, hey, you can buy from me because I'm unique. And if you think you're not unique, just if you're more unique than Turner cartridges, I'll bet you can do it. I did it with Turner cartridges. Just saying. Go ahead. Go to the next one.
Yeah, Dave, I do want to say, just going back to a couple of things. So for when we were talking, two things. Number one, we were talking about the old FAR language that they took out in FAR put 8.404.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say that if you see an expiring 8A here and you think you could ask the contracting officer that if they're going to do it as a GSA and you're on that NACS code, that GSA, ask them to include you in the solicitation. They don't have to anymore, but they might not know, in particular, the civilian agencies, particularly, they might not know that that language has been removed from the FAR and might just include you as opposed to deciding who they want to put in or not. So I would always ask them to include you in the solicitation when you see the list, number one. And number two, I had mentioned before, David, if you could put in the chat this FAR clause. So if you go under, and I don't think it changed in our Ruffo because I have the new and revolutionary FAR overhaul, but it's 1605 ordering when we talk about a logical follow-on and the language in there, and it's buried in there. You got to find it, but you have to go to exceptions to fair opportunity. Has anybody done a logical follow-on? I don't think I got any thumbs up before. Give me a thumbs up if you had a logical follow-on done in the past 2 years. Somebody, we had 100 people in here. Somebody's got to have a logical follow-on that has been done.
Maybe not.
No, yeah, that's
Oh,
how
there
I
we go.
feel.
Got one.
And that's crazy. But it says in there, the order must be issued on a sole source basis in the interest of economy and efficiency because it is a logical follow-on to an order already issued under the contract, provided that all awardees were given a fair opportunity to be considered for award. So that's what it says in FAR Part 16. So if it was originally competed as on an IDIQ, they can do a one-time logical follow-on. Now, GSA says the same thing. Interesting enough, in GSA, if they only limited it to 6 people and everybody on eBuy wasn't included in that solicitation, I'm not sure that they could do a logical follow-on. I haven't really crossed that bridge with any contracting officer from that standpoint, but that's at 16505 from that standpoint. Yep.
16505?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
16.
16505. Anything else on this slide, Dave?
Nope, go ahead. And in fact, everybody else can review these for themselves.
So this was a small approach, and then there was a large approach.
The large approach
was pretty similar, but you probably want to team up with somebody if you're large.
And
right?
the questions go to if they want a sole source, then you find a teaming partner and work with the teaming partner to sole source, exactly like Jerry did. It's exactly what Jerry did. You can do that as a small business or a large business. Keep going for the next one.
Yep.
So get in the green, stay in the green from the incumbent's perspective, right? So if you're an 8A, you want to stay in the green. Jerry wanted to stay in the green. He was already the contract awardee. He wanted to keep it. So your job is to stay in the green, hit the next thing. So it goes to, like I say, you build a castle, then you build a moat around that castle and you fill it with alligators and everything else, water and alligators. So you sow the FUD factor. If you haven't heard of the FUD factor, that's fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You don't want to move to somebody that you don't know. If you're Jerry, hey, we know how to deal with you. Don't give it to somebody else. And you're the least risk. Use your CPARs and your past performance data. CPARs is becoming very, very important. If you're not using your CPARs, if you don't know what those are, you don't have a contract probably. But if you do, make sure you have good CPARs. They are definitely using that to sort select. Now, they're doing it now. So make sure that that's included and then your past performance lines up. So your alternative path, again, everything we're doing today is about developing that alternative path. They were using 8A. Now it's not going to be used. Give them the alternative path. Don't make them think. Don't ask them, well, what do you think you're going to do? Use me. Use my alternative path. We'll help you get through it. And if necessary, team and partner, just like Jerry did. I was really glad that Jerry was here. Go ahead, next.
Yep. And if you want to see PAR's radar demo, shoot me an email.
We'll hook you up. It's a big deal. All right. You just flip through these. All right. In every one of these, make sure you're knowing early about the opportunities, get the insider information, and get influence on that scope of work. If you're the incumbent, you already have all of those things. You already know early. So protect your opportunity, protect your contract, and influence the vehicle. Go hit the next one. And that gives you the ability to get your set aside, whatever set aside they want to use, and make sure you have that. So you guys can review this for your own, but the idea is if you're the incumbent, you are still qualified because you already did the work. Now that's assuming that you're doing it right. But if you look at Jerry, they like Jerry, they want to use Jerry, ask them how the best way to maintain continuity of that contract. That's exactly what Jerry did. And then make recommendations how you can still deliver outside of the 8A program. This was before Jerry's had given his. This was the advice that we were given. He followed this exactly.
I do like that bottom one about thinking about it as a sole source, particularly if you're one of those other three categories that we mentioned. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yep. So there you go. All right, do's and don'ts. Don't wait. Get moving. Market your stuff to stakeholders. All this has to do with being proactive. Lead with your qualifications. Don't lead with your certification. That didn't work before. Don't do it now, especially. And dialogue with them about your capabilities and make sure you're aligning yourself with the mission and objectives, just like Brian said. Then you're going to point how they can transition to you and leverage whatever you got. If you don't have it, you can't leverage it. So leverage what you got. Bring in partners if you have to. And with contracting officers, this is one thing we say on the Monday roundtables a lot. Talk about contracting.
Watch it. Well, I don't even know what you're going to say, but
what? Talk about contracting.
You're talking about contracting officers.
I'm talking about discuss contracting with contracting officers. I would ask Brian, hey, Brian, what was your preferred way of buying? And Brian would say,
GSA. Limited sources
on GSA. He just gave you a golden for him. Everyone's different. Somebody might say, I hate GSA. I want to buy off of Soup because I'm buying a lot of IT. Or I have to buy off of this IDIQ because I'm mandated to. That you'll never know if you don't ask that question. But if you're discussing contracting, not how great you are at your IT modernization, because you start talking about IT bits and bytes and it's like, want Charlie Brown to Brian. He's an intelligent individual, but he doesn't give two shits about what your processes are for how you manage all your IT stuff. He just cares, hey, can you help me save money? Can you help me solve a problem? Do you have some innovative technology? I won't understand it, but I'm glad you got it. Tell me what it is, and I'll help you get it within the right places. And that's where you get your referral to other stakeholders, which are your other people in the decision-making tree. So that's pretty much it. Let's get to your piece, Brian, so that they can They can get there. We will get to your Q&A. I promise we'll get to all those. But go ahead and
Yeah,
share
because
out that
yeah, because
spreadsheet. And I'm going to drop
really
that into I'm going to start dropping stuff into the head. Can a
yeah,
logical
because
follow-up be used for woman-owned contracts that were sole source? Yes, if you are the incumbent.
hey
Richard.
Dave, because I really want to see their questions. Let
Yeah,
me just
we'll get there. Make
yeah.
sure you get your we want to get this done though so
No.
they
I'm
can do
trying
it.
to find it. I'm trying to find it in Zoom.
Trying to find
Hold on a second.
got it.
No.
I'm gonna start dropping these in so that they have this is the presentation. I'm just going to drop them in here. You guys can download all these.
Do you still
And
see it, Dave?
I can't see anything from you.
You can't. Okay. I'm sorry. Bear with me a sec. Just trying to pull it up in my Zoom. I'm having a problem finding it.
And the final one that's going to be in there is going to be what Brian's opening up. You want me to open it up, Brian?
The spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Well, let me just try one more time. One second, so I can just filter it appropriately.
Yep. Deontay, we will be emailing this as well with links to a master download sheet. We are transitioning on GovBrief to Nextcloud.
Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
Can you see it? Yep. Okay, good. So here's a spreadsheet that you'll be getting, and we're just going to start over here. So you got the as Dave refers to the PID, the award ID, and that's going to be if it's an IDIQ, and
Mm-hmm.
then the ID. You're going to have the awardee name, right? Just go across here. You're going to have your period of performance. So you really want to stick to this one, your end date, your period of performance end date. You could sort by there. And I'm going to do some sorting. I just want you to see you got the original description, the potential dollar amount of the award. From that standpoint, here's your funding agency, your top level agency, your funding agency, or your second awarding agency. You can go in just to look to see who that is, the vehicle name they use. I mean, as we discussed, they didn't fill it. Here's your NACS code. From that standpoint, all these are going to be filled in, whether it's 8A competed or 8A set aside. Your place of performance is here. You're going to have some other ones, type of order, type of contract from that standpoint. And we're going to just keep going over to hit the main one. Here's your created by, last modified by, and approved by. And you can see some of them have the email addresses and some of them don't. Now, if you have somebody like here at Canon, you're going to have to do a little digging to find out. And you might be able to find it on sim.gov or just Google it and to find out what that person's email address is. And then from that standpoint, you can sort anyway. So anybody want to put in the chat box how they'd like me to see it sorted, and we can do it just to show you.
Anybody got an X code that they would like to show? Because this is a great example of how you can go find expiring contracts that are at risk for the incumbent in your market.
Let's pick an X code.
You can do a NACS code or NAICS code. Anybody want to put one in? Oh man, am I missing it? Here we go. Hold on a second. Where is this? All right, here we go. 541-620 Arthur. That's Arthur's 541-620. But you guys can do the same thing. And what you do is you go up into the top. If you go to the top and put that little downward carrot looking thing and just type in there, Brian, type in 541.
Yeah, I'm
Right at the top
sorry.
where it says search.
I'm sorry, I'm a little slow.
No, type in the search right at the top.
Okay.
Right
Okay.
at the not there. That's all right.
Okay. Well, I got it. 541-620.
541-620. So
Any
now
particular
you have
agency?
yep.
And how about the agency, the same person?
So what agency would you like, Arthur? Tony, we do not know which one. It's DOD is what he wants. Arthur wants DOD.
Oh,
So
okay.
anything DOD?
Well,
So
we could go top level. We go top level and just hit DOD, and they should all be in there, all the DOD,
Should
and
be.
then it shows you the Army. But then from there, what I would do, I mean, you could sort it a bunch of different ways, but I'd look at the mo not the I'd look at when it's expiring, period of performance end date. I would sort by that, and I would go to the let's go newest to the oldest. So here's the ones, and you can flip it back the other way, oldest to the newest if you want, and go. And I would just start sorting down here to see what it is, and then
And
see
start
what
targeting.
lines up with your work, from that standpoint. And then you can sort by the dollar value if you want. If you want to sort
Yep.
by the dollar value to find the big ones, and that's going to be the potential dollar value for the award. And I just go largest to the smallest, and then you could start going through and hunting that way, and that way you can kind of line your hunt down. And then when you get out here, let's see how many COs put their whole email address in. Let's
Should be
see.
quite a few.
Yeah, see on the DoD side, quite a bit. Not so much
Now,
NASA.
look, guys, you're going to see all three of those B, D, B, E, and BF columns. Stay right there, Brian. You're going to see some of those have multiples, and there'll be different people. A lot of these people are the
Yeah, like
same.
this one. Like
Yep.
here, there's two people.
Yep. And every once in a while, you get some nonsense characters in there. You'll see it when you see it. Take the nonsense characters out, especially in the VA if you're doing
Like
anything
this
with VA.
one. Like this one here.
Yeah, that's an administrator. That's not anything major. You're going to find that some of these don't work at all because they're not real. But you'll see that there's plenty of contacts that you should be able to reach out to and grab one of those templates and wordsmith it to your delight and send it out.
Yeah, and then the other thing you could go down here, and I got to find it. You go to the state. Like if that work, you could go into the state. You can even go into your zip code if you want. So if you want to pick a particular state, if you're in let's just say California, it's people from California on. Here's what's happening, and here's where it is in California. So, and then you could go and email that CO and say, "Hey, can I come in and visit you?" You know. Anyhow, does that make sense?
Ooh, here's one.
And
Ken's got one. I heard you say don't lead with your certs. Do you see CMMC becoming an exception to that? Yes, Ken, I do. That's one. Now, that's a professional cert that you're getting, right? That's not a socioeconomic cert. Lead with a professional cert because that shows you're qualified. Love that question.
yeah. So any questions about the data when you get it? If you have it, you can email me if you have any questions about it
Yep.
from that standpoint.
Love it. All right. So let's do this so we can get them out. I do want to ask some questions. I'm going to go back a little ways. How does this comes from Stacy, how does the new SecDev HEGSET standards fit into these rules like a hand in a glove with pressure? That's what I would say. Would you say, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I think in that case, in terms of the DFARS, I don't think the DFARS is going to change anything. If not, like there might be some internal policy where they say if they award an 8A, they gotta get some special approval off the line.
Mm,
We won't see. So, they have their
yeah.
own internal I mean, you're going to have your DFARS, but then you're going to have your internal policy. So the internal policy might be if it's anything that's going to be an 8A, the head of the contracting activity needs to sign off on it, or it's got to go two levels above the contracting officer,
Yep.
or you got to justify why you're going to do an 8A. And I don't know, but you heard that Jerry from that one age, I think it was Jerry from that one agency. Now no 8As, and so that
No 8A.
head
Yep.
of the contracting activity can make that decision, or people higher up in the Department of War can make those decisions from that standpoint. So we might not know all
And,
the policies, but it could just ask your CO, from that standpoint. Or if you go to an industry event or talk to some of your colleagues, what are you hearing?
yep. And are COs allowed to keep contracts in the 8A program?
Yeah, they are. They are. I'm seeing some. I'm seeing that depends on your agency because as we just
Yep.
said, that one HCA head of the contracting activity is saying nope, no 8As. But now some other ones, I'm seeing some other 8As staying in the program. But if it's less than 4.5 million now, that I mean, they got to compete it. They could compete it in the A. They could go to GSA and compete it in the 8A program, and either do it on e-buy and set it aside, or they could do a limited sources on e-buy and just keep
Yep.
making only to 8As. So they could still keep it in, but they would just have to compete it. Which I can just tell you from my standpoint, that's just going to take, and rather than doing it in a month, it's going to take 4 months. I'm talking services now, not
Yep.
necessarily product.
So, Sridhar asked, so what's the benefit of obtaining an 8A certification anymore? The answer is it, we'll see.
It's a target on your back, it sounds like right now.
Right now
Right
it's
now, it's
not
a
a
target on your
benefit.
back.
And
Yeah.
then Maggie says, we might get into this later on, but I'm interested in understanding the impact of these changes on Super 8As. We've newly formed JV with the Native American 8A and are trying to understand the impacts and how to still get sole source. And the
Yeah, and
answer
that's
is, go ahead.
yeah. I don't know, Dave. That's a great question because I'm not
Yeah,
sure what the answer. I told you if I don't know, I'm not going to tell you, and
yeah.
I'm not sure what the impact is on those 8A, the ANC 8As. I'm not sure if you do, Dave, or not.
But well, we saw that the NCAA 8As, a lot of their contracts got um deobligated or canceled, and there's definitely some high bright lights on them. So
Yeah,
we
but
might,
it's interesting. I'm not sure if I said it in the beginning or not, but I was thinking about it. What I did learn is the reason those 8As came about was because of legislation that was passed during the Reagan administration to put in the Alaskan pipeline, and as a result of giving up that land for the Alaskan pipeline, the ANC's got this special ability to have contracts up to 22 and a half or $100 million. That's where that came from, that
yep,
legislation. So they're not going to go away, so
yep,
that's going to be a big fight for them
yep,
on each side from that standpoint.
and
So I think
yep,
TBD, I haven't seen a whole lot on it, but if anybody's got any information that me and Dave or don't have, please let us know from that standpoint.
absolutely. And Corey's there's a lot of questions that are similar to this. When does the threshold change for $5.5 million for sole source awards? Is that already implemented? It's already there in the FAR, but you were mentioning that it's not necessarily been codified throughout the agencies. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, I guess it depends if your agency has accepted that deviation. That's a good question, but I would tend to think all contracting officers would be doing that.
Yep.
So I think
And
SBA, I think that's probably SBA increasing that threshold even as opposed to the FAR, Dave, I think. So I'm pretty sure that's
yep.
done, but that probably took place about 3 months ago. In fact, when we did this
Yeah.
presentation the first time, I had still had 4.5 million in the slides, and somebody
Yep.
said, "Oh, it was increased to 5.5." So
Yep.
and we verified it. It's 5.5. Yep.
So, and can the KO choose to keep a contract in the 8A program if it's under 5.5 million? And you're saying it has to go through competed IDIQ first or something,
Well,
right?
yeah, it's got to be they have to consider competing it on GSA or a FAR Part 16 IDIQ first.
Okay.
But it can stay in.
Um,
Yep. And I'm seeing them
and that
staying in.
goes to Thomas as well. Thomas asked that question.
Yep.
And Cynthia, we're going to try to find a list of those suspended 8A companies. That would be valuable and very good for just banter, wouldn't it, Brian?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you sole source to an SDV OSB? And the answer is yes, you can.
Yeah, we have some of those on there. I think that's where most of them were being sole sourced. You should check that at sam.gov. I've never done a sole source in those categories before
But they
because I
do it.
thought it was hard to justify, but contracting officers and SDV OSBs are doing it.
It's not nearly what the 8A was, but that's been happening for years, just very,
Yeah.
very small
Yeah.
percentages.
Now, with that
Um,
said, if you do have an 8A less than 5.5 million and you can justify it staying as a sole source, they can still do it. That's what that
I
said.
love it. And so if you have to bounce, that's fine. We'll make sure everybody gets a copy of this recording. And I'll answer some stuff in the chat. I'm going through the Q&A right now. Is there a particular GSA schedule recommended for Corey? That really depends on what you do, I think, right, Brian?
Yeah, yeah, no, nothing here. Just depends on what you
Um,
do.
Will large prime contractors still have a certain percentage obligation to subcontract to 8As? That's a great question because that goes to the subcontractor plan, right, Brian?
Yeah, well, they got rid of most of the small business specialists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or hiring new
Yeah, they
ones.
weren't enforcing it anyway, so it doesn't much matter.
Yeah, so they weren't. They
I'm
weren't.
sorry, James.
Some agencies were starting to say they were going to enforce it, and though it never happened through the years. So
Mm-hmm.
part of your CPARs, right? It's part of your CPARs goals
Yep.
from that. point if you're
And
large.
that is one, finally, if they're using that as a category and they get a derogatory remark, they want to avoid that. That's about the best that I've
Yeah.
heard in
Well,
years.
yeah. I mean, they're using it in CPARs, but I don't think that's going to. I mean, if you get it, I think a lot of contracting officers are just checking off the box because the larges
Yeah.
are providing information saying what they're trying to do to get more subcontractors. So I
And
think,
that goes to the anonymous attendees that have heard the levels of distinction for CPARs will be greatly reduced going forward. Please discuss. They were going to be reduced
yeah. Yeah,
until
that National Defense Authorization Bill had language in it that CPARS was going to be used just for negative certifications. And actually we had, through people in our CPARS radar, they had some discussions with different people in government, and that NADA bill got changed. Now they are going to do a study in DOD, but I can just tell you from Jeff Kosis at GSA, from the director of OFPP. I can't see it's going to be used more often probably than less often. That's
yep,
what we see. But we'll see what this study comes out with in DoD. But that language about the negative certification was totally removed. Liz Stefanik, somebody on her staff must have put that in there, and that was a mistake. I'll
yep.
just say that.
So Joe's asking, how do you find out where to bid on projects? Sam.gov is a place. If you have a GSA contract, GSA e-buy. If you work with DLA, you can find it on Dibs. And you can also create your own because we know that 98% don't hit on
Yeah.
sam.gov or GSA e-buy. So creating your own by expiring contracts as well as developing your own contracts by reaching
Well,
out to those folks.
yeah. And or the agency forecast.
Agency forecast, another place.
Yeah. And some agencies are better than others. I'll just say that. Yeah.
All right, Shelly, we'll make sure we get you refunded or get you another subject that you'd like to attend because she paid for both December and today, Brian. She
Oh,
loves you so
wow.
much.
Well, thanks, Shelley.
So, Tanya, regarding government CPARs, my company serves as the sole subcontractor on HHS. Though we're responsible for delivering the majority of work, the CPAR rating is only issued to the prime. That is true. How can subcontractors establish and document past performance in such situations? Coming to a
Uh,
theater near you soon. We're working on that
well,
right
let me
now.
just say, part of that, right, exactly, Dave. Part of that DoD study that they're going to do is trying to figure out how to get commercial organizations to have CPARs in a system, and I imagine that might pertain to subcontractors too. So right now, there's nothing but, I think that part of the problem they wanted to get rid of CPARs with that NADA bill is because they wanted to have innovative contractors be able to be on an equal playing field with current government contractors. But some of that commercial solutions opening that you're seeing, broad agency announcements, the OTAs, and then this CPAR study on to get commercial organizations in is probably going to actually beef up the requirements for CPAR. So I think more to come on that, but right now, nada.
Yep. And Craig, my apologies because I tried to find the answer to that question. Are the differences for tribal 8As given different thresholds, 30 million and 150 million to DOD? Are
And
there
yeah,
differences for tribal given
yeah,
that their
you know
thresholds
what?
are different?
Yeah, you know what? I'll just tell you, Craig, I went into Copilot about 3 weeks ago. I used Microsoft Copilot on it, and it gave me the answers there. Just go into Copilot and ask the question; it'll pop up, and hopefully it'll be
But
the right
he's
answer.
asking, I don't know the answer to that. And I tried to type it and then I tried to backspace and then I couldn't find where it put it. So that was all fat
Yeah,
thumbed on my part,
yeah,
Craig, my fault.
I have it somewhere on my desk because I went to get the guy who was wondering the same thing from that
Yep.
standpoint. Yep,
And,
but there are
and
differences.
Jeremy's saying, is there any indication that Congress, presumably Democrats, are thinking about drawing a distinction for inconsistency between U.S. code that establishes FAR and the FAR updates? FAR is just policy, not law. Well, FAR is, I'll let you speak to this, Brian,
Well,
but
I'll just get the answer. No, we've had that question before, and Yeah, so I know you know your FAR if you're asking that question. And yeah, so it's got to be there is a difference between the CFR now and the FAR. So yeah, that is a problem, from that standpoint. But I guess contracting officers are following the FAR as opposed to the what's codified in CFR, but that's supposed to be coming. So great question, and that's a little
Yep,
bit of.
yep, yep. And Deontay will make sure we get you taken care of too, because Deontay did both.
You did both.
And
Did you
he
learn
did both.
anything new?
Yeah,
Give him a refund. Yeah, give
we'll
them.
make sure we get you taken care of.
Yeah,
Don't you
but thank
worry
you.
about that.
Thanks
We
for
will.
attending. Yep.
Yep. So let me do this. I'm going over to the chat real quick because there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that I want to go back to. Um, I spend my life trying to find stuff on my computer. Well, good luck with that, Shelly, because it's all going to be there somewhere. Yes, we will be emailing it. Does the table include NAICS code? You better believe, Arthur. You can
Yeah.
download this, and it is the one that says 8A expiring. I'll put it in again just so that it makes it easy for the most bang for the buck. That's this form right there. And Shelly bought your book. How about that?
Hey, good. Well, Shelley, I can just tell you, my CPARS book is fantastic. If you really want to learn your CPARS real well, you
Yep.
know.
You're welcome,
I
Shelly. She
hate to
says
say
this is
that,
so
but
awesome.
yeah, but it's pretty good.
Gotcha. All right. So if I'm new, what do I need to get done before proceeding? Do I need the SBA WOSB? I have an informal WOSB, not the official. You don't need a thing, Teresa, to start. Start talking to the contracting officers saying, hey, I'm a small business. I'm going to get my woman-owned certification at some point. I wouldn't even talk about that. I would talk about your qualifications with the contracting officer. Say, how would you like to buy from me? That's what I would say. What did you say, Brian?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. There's four things. If you guys don't kind of, have one of those four things as we talked about, save money, solve a problem, new technology, industry trends. Yeah.
And Teresa, if you are new, Sam Radar is one of the ways that it's a product that we have, so you can check that out. The procurement database, certainly you can look at Sam. There's some things that you can do. I would absolutely try that and then follow those instructions so you can build those relationships. If you're not official, you're out. An excellent database, and we'll use this for hunting. You are welcome, Arthur. Um, if you're, I'm gonna let Teresa. We'll take that offline. Is about sam.gov if you're not registered. Hegseth said his focus is anything over $20 million, which is that's fine. But I'm telling you, the 8As are getting pinched all the way through the system. Wouldn't you say, Brian?
Yeah, yeah. I hadn't seen that, but I believe it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Arthur says I've sole sourced the VAs and SDVOSB, but it's been sparingly used. Yes, and that's one of the places where you'll find it mostly because they have veterans first because of the Kingdomware decision in 2016. Will you show us how to search the SAM contract database directly? How do you search for WSB contracts? Teresa, I do that every month on the second Tuesday at 1 p.m. So I'll make sure that you get an invite to that and a discount. It's not very expensive for that one. Would a currently suspended 8A contractor lose a contract award from fiscal year 2025? We have seen it, Max. We don't know. It depends on the contract, right, Brian?
Yeah, yeah. Would they terminate it? Is that what he was asking? Would they terminate it, or if it's expiring, or are they
Would a
asking if they?
suspended contractor lose a contract award from fiscal year 2025? The answer
Oh,
is
well,
if they are
know what? That's
suspended,
really that's a really good question
that's a
because
great
like
question.
they've had that issue about recertification,
Mhm.
right? When you exercise an option and the company's selling, there's been that changes going on out there for that. So in theory, you could argue that if they, really once in the past, once a contractor graduated from the 8A, if they had a contract, they stayed in it. Now, whether somebody's going to upset that apple cart or not,
Yeah.
uh, I don't know. I mean, like right now, like, I have a client who's graduating from the program. And I had to work with her a little bit to look at the exact rules. But right now, the rule is that if they put a solicitation out and you respond to that solicitation prior to you graduating, they could still award that 8A contract to you, even though you've graduated. So from that standpoint, then that contract can continue for, whatever it is, 1 or 5 years.
Yep.
So from that standpoint, and that contract was a completion contract rather than a term contract where you're going to have options every year. Um, so I guess the question is, and right now they could stay in the 8A program unless some changes come out and that somebody says you can't exercise an option on an 8A if they've been suspended from the program. But we haven't seen that yet. But it's a good question. Maybe so.
Yeah. Um, Corey saying 8A companies that submit the required documentation after suspension appear to be reinstated within 5 days. That's your experience. That's great, Corey. Thank you for that update. It's good to know, right?
Yep.
And Arthur saying, Teresa, go to the SBA website and apply. Also set up a program with the PTAC. PTACs can help. That's Apex Accelerators now, I think. Fantastic. Love it. Richard paid for both as well. We'll make sure you get you taken care of.
What?
I'm telling you, they're just loving us, Brian. Love us so much, it's just want to
No, they're not loving
back.
that they paid twice.
No, they're loving that we're going to give it back.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Is the spreadsheet a consolidation of SAM contracting data? If yes, how did you export this? It's actually FPDS data exported in. I think you used the system to do yours, right, Brian?
Yeah.
He's got a subscription. Do contracting officers usually dedicate a certain amount of time to meet new people? Oh, Shelly, that would be great if they did what Brian used to do. Not all of them do. Is there a
Probably
tip
not
jar?
today.
Oh man, we need it. That's one thing Zoom's got to be able to implement. That's the best question yet, Richard. Is there a tip jar? I love that. I love that. As a former professional musician, that would absolutely accept tips everywhere. I love it. All right. Tips for you both. Love that. Teresa, love that too. All right. I think we did it, Brian.
Okay, but if you have questions in the
I
future,
shoot, I'll make sure that everybody gets the link for the Monday roundtables. There is no Monday roundtable this Monday because of President's Day. So we'll make sure you get the links for those early next week. It'll take a little while for this to register and everything. So you'll get those by Tuesday. You'll have everything in your inbox for all these sessions and links and everything else that you got. Does that make sense? Is that cool with everybody?
Yep.
All right, guys. So say it one more time. What tool that aggregated this spreadsheet was called? It was called FPDS, but they're decommissioning FPDS. You can use SAM.gov databank reports if you are a propeller head, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. I'll talk about that in 2 weeks because they're transitioning FPDS to SAM.gov, so I'm going to do that. Brian, why don't you put your email address in there for folks? Shelly doesn't want my email address. She only wants yours, Brian.
really? We didn't have that on the last slide. So we had our address.
You did, but we didn't look at the last slide. We went into other stuff. Oh, she has mine already, Brian. That's why she doesn't need mine. All right. I'll give you, let me give you Sherry's too. I'll get Jerry's in a second. You got to dig that one up from my.
Dave, you look like you got some sun down there.
I do, man. That's my job.
Yeah.
It's also blazing in this room now because the door's shut.
That could be why. Don't even give me that crap about it. It's hot down there. Send some of that heat up north.
Yes, sir. I wish I could.
Okay, man.
We'll get.
Thanks, everybody.
Here it is. I got Jerry's. Let me get Jerry's in there real quick. It's Jerry. His name is Jerry Crenning.
Thanks,
And
Rob.
didn't you think Jerry was great?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He did a nice job.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mine's in there, right above Dave's.
Yep. And Rob says, thanks, guys, like drinking out of a fire hose. Yep. That's why we don't that's why I love doing the Monday roundtables too, because it gives you a chance to settle down and ask questions and
Is that your
help each
Rob?
other.
Is that your Rob or a different Rob?
No, this is a different Rob.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, just wondered.
No, man,
Hey,
he would have been gasping for air by now listening to us.
probably can't see Brian's email. Host
Can't
and
see Brian's.
oh, I just put it to host and
Oh, here
power.
you go. I got it. I got it.
Oh,
I got it in. I'll put it in.
sure.
Brian.
Oh, okay.
There it is. Sorry about that.
Yep.
All right, guys, you got everything you need? We good? Thumbs up. Have a
Thanks
great
everybody for
weekend.
today. Much appreciated.
Have a great extended weekend. And I am going out there.
Yeah. Uh-huh. To the very bottom of the United States.
That's right. And
If
guess
anybody-
what? If you've never been here, there's a place called the southernmost point in the United States. And so we looked it up and I got directions to it this morning and it said open. And this is outside. It's not like you can have it closed. But when we got there, it was actually closed and boarded up because they're doing some work. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And we're in here with my sister-in-law.
Yeah.
She's in for one day. So we're
Yeah, and James is calling you a jerk for being all the way down there. I love that. Thanks, James. That made my day.
I resemble that remark, James.
Yeah, yeah. We're jelly here in Chicago. I love that. We're jelly. Yeah, the blood's a little bit thicker up in Chicago. I love that. Pretty good.
All
Okay,
right,
well, everybody,
guys.
thanks again. Have a great weekend. See you, Dave.
Right. See you,
Get
Brian.
that
Great stuff.
lobster biscuit at that place I was telling you about.
Lobster biscuit coming up.
Yeah, okay, man.
All right.
Lobster biscuit slider, as I recall.
All right.
Yeah.
See you.